Welcome to Recaply X, your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists. In minutes, the movie 65 is generally about a man who used to take on short missions, but this time he wanted to embark on a long mission to earn enough money to treat his daughter, Navine. Later, Mills told his daughter Navine that he would travel in space for 2 years and taught her how to whistle with her hand so she could remember him with that gesture while he was away. Indeed, Mills embarked on the mission as the pilot responsible for the ship, while his crew was in a state of cryogenic freezing. One day, the ship collided with a group of meteors, and the impacts severely damaged the ship, forcing Mills to send a distress signal and redirect the ship to the nearest planet. The ship split into 2 parts during its descent onto the planet. Just before it crashed into the ground, Mills began recalling memories with his daughter before losing consciousness. Moments later, Mills woke up to the sound of the computer announcing they were on an unknown planet. He also discovered a piece of metal lodged in his abdomen, which he quickly removed and treated the wound. Afterward, Mills put on his spacesuit and went out to assess the damage to the ship. He found that the cryogenic chamber was completely destroyed. He grabbed his laser gun and ventured outside the ship to explore the planet itself. Mills walked on a dangerous, unknown planet, surrounded by giant creatures everywhere. After some time, he found the corpses of his crew, all of whom were dead. Mills returned to the ship and discovered that the escape pod was in the other half of the ship that had broken off during the landing. He sent another distress signal, stating he was on an unknown planet. Feeling despair after losing his crew, Mills pointed his gun at himself, intending to end his life. However, memories of Navine stopped him. To motivate himself, he gathered all the tapes Navine had sent him and began watching them. Suddenly, the computer informed Mills that one of the cryogenic capsules was still functioning and nearby. Mills went to the capsule and was surprised to find a young girl named Koa inside. Mills noticed large predator footprints and, upon closer inspection, determined he was on Earth 65 million years ago during the time of the dinosaurs. After some time, Mills returned to the ship carrying Koa, deciding to escape the planet to save her. He asked the computer to locate the other half of the ship, but it couldn't pinpoint the exact location. Mills ventured out again to explore and found massive animal bones, indicating the area was extremely dangerous. He also encountered a hot spring, which startled him as it was his first time seeing such a phenomenon. Continuing his exploration, Mills noticed something shiny in the distance. Upon examining it with his equipment, he discovered it was the second half of the ship. He began planning how to reach it. Suddenly, a small dinosaur attacked him. Mills fought with the dinosaur, eventually overpowering and killing it with his gun. Exhausted, he rested, but soon heard a sound coming from the forest. When he investigated, he discovered that Koa had left the ship. Mills ran after her to bring her back, but she was scared and kept running until he finally caught up to her. They both fell beside a large dead dinosaur. Suddenly, the nearby trees began shaking, revealing a massive creature approaching them. Mills quickly grabbed Koa and fled with her to the ship. Mills treated the wound Koa had sustained during the fall and tried to explain their situation, but Koa couldn't understand him as she spoke a different language. When Mills attempted to use the ship's computer to translate, he found the translator was broken. He resorted to drawing in the red sand to communicate with her. Mills drew a mountain with the second half of the ship on it, explaining they needed to reach it to escape. Koa also drew, indicating she was searching for her family. To comfort her, Mills lied, saying her family was also on the mountain. Before starting their journey to the mountain, Mills sent another distress signal, mentioning he had found another survivor. Meanwhile, Koa found Navine's recorded tapes and played them. The tapes revealed that Navine's illness had worsened a year after her father left. In the first few months of his journey, Navine sent cheerful messages, expressing pride in her father. Over time, however, she grew angry at his absence during her illness. When Mills saw Koa watching Navine's recordings, he turned them off and told her they needed to leave immediately. Mills prepared supplies for the journey, and they set off toward the mountain, being cautious not to make noise to avoid attracting predators. After walking for a while, Koa noticed something shiny in the sky, but didn't comment. Bored, she began throwing wild berries at Mills. Annoyed, Mills warned her that the berries were poisonous and told her to wash her hands. Later, an insect landed on Mills's neck. He killed it, but a sticky liquid from the insect got on him. Mills tried to wipe it off on a tree, but the substance was like glue, sticking to part of the tree and his hand. Koa laughed at him, so he playfully threatened to touch her with his sticky hand. Their game was interrupted when a tree branch fell nearby. At that moment, they heard noises coming from a nearby area. When they investigated, they found a small dinosaur trapped in a pit of sticky material. Koa felt sorry for the dinosaur and ran to help it, despite Mills's warnings about the danger. Ignoring him, she continued to assist the dinosaur. Mills eventually joined in, hoping to speed things up so they could leave. Together, they freed the dinosaur, but as soon as it was out, a group of predators attacked and devoured it. Mills pulled Koa away and hid with her, not wanting her to witness the gruesome scene. However, Koa was still upset and cried over losing her new friend. The two continued their journey, stopping at a river to wash their faces and fill their water bottles. Mills was concerned about the wound on his abdomen, but having Koa with him gave him strength, as she reminded him of his daughter, Navine. I found some beautiful flowers by the river and kept pestering Millsy until I made him put one of them on his head. After a minute, Millsy's device lost signal and couldn't locate the cheese, so Millsy climbed a tree, hoping to strengthen the signal a bit and locate it. But suddenly, a bug landed on Millsy's hand. Millsy threw the bug away, and this sudden movement caused him to fall from the tree. As a result of the fall and the height he fell from, Millsy's shoulder was dislocated. Millsy asked Koa to help him and push his shoulder forcefully until it returned to its natural position. At the same time, a group of dinosaurs heard the noise, and they headed toward us to attack. As soon as Millsy saw the dinosaurs coming toward us, he encouraged me and leaned on his arm to make it easier for me. Indeed, I managed to fix his shoulder just in time. Millsy quickly grabbed his weapon and started firing at the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were getting closer to Millsy, so he ordered Koa to flee the area. He used small bombs and threw them at the dinosaurs. Millsy successfully got rid of a large number of dinosaurs, but a few remained and were attacking him. Millsy used his rifle and killed the remaining dinosaurs. Meanwhile, I had escaped to another place and saw a different type of flying dinosaur there. I was terrified of the dinosaurs, so I hid behind another rock, but unfortunately, another dinosaur appeared in front of Koa. Before it could attack Koa, Millsy appeared just in time and killed the dinosaur. What Millsy didn't know was that a third dinosaur was hiding. As soon as it saw an opportunity, it took it and dragged Koa away from Millsy to eat Koa. Millsy ran after the dinosaur to save Koa. When he got close enough, he fired a shot into the air, scaring it off and making it back away from Koa. After what happened, I was terrified of everything and refused to let Millsy come near Koa. Millsy understood my fear and decided to give Koa some time to calm down. When night fell, Millsy started whistling with his hand in the same way he used to whistle for his daughter, Navine. His plan worked, and the whistling calmed Koa down a bit. Finally, she decided to continue the journey to the mountain with him. After a long walk, the two of us reached a cave and decided to spend the night there. Millsy placed sensors around the entire area to alert us if any danger approached. He also used his device to look at the sky and discovered something shining. It turned out to be a meteor heading toward Earth. However, the meteor was small in size, meaning it wouldn't affect or harm us. At that moment, I pulled out one of Nevine's tapes. At first, Millsy was upset with Koa, but he decided to play the tape because seeing Nevine comforted both of us. Millsy tried to sleep several times but couldn't because he kept remembering the day his wife called him to tell him that their daughter, Niveen, had died. Later, Millsy woke up to the sound of the sensors, indicating danger was near. He went to check on Koa. There is a giant bug was inside the mouth of the girl. Millsy used a tool he had with him to kill the bug. He let Koa spit out the rest of the bug to the side. At the same time, the sensors picked up something else, but this time the alarm was stronger, indicating a greater danger. Indeed, a giant dinosaur entered the cave. Millsy fired at the giant dinosaur several times and escaped with me through a smaller opening in the cave. What they didn't know was that a smaller dinosaur had followed them and entered through the opening with them. After walking for a very long time, Millsy and I reached a dead end. Millsy noticed a small opening in the wall and tried to widen it with his hands. After hours, Millsy could only widen the opening by a few centimeters, which obviously frustrated him. I refused to give up like Millsy did and kept yelling at him to take her to my family. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. Millsy used the small bombs he had and blew up part of the opening. The opening indeed became slightly larger, allowing Koa to enter and explore it because of my small size. She told Millsy there was an exit on the other side and asked him to follow her, but suddenly the opening collapsed in front of Millsy and he lost contact with the girl. At that moment, Millsy heard a strange sound coming from behind him, so he grabbed his rifle, pulled out his device, and started locating the dinosaur. The dinosaur tried to attack Millsy from behind, but Millsy managed to avoid the attack. On the second attempt, the dinosaur reached Millsy, causing him to drop his rifle. The dinosaur dragged Millsy away and bit his arm. Millsy resisted with all his strength until he managed to reach his device, releasing a sonic wave that hurt the dinosaur. Taking advantage of the situation, Millsy grabbed his rifle and killed the dinosaur. Meanwhile, Koa managed to exit the cave, but I was sad because I was alone. I found a large bone that I could use as a weapon. To make the weapon more effective, I poisoned it using toxic wild berries, wrapped it in a tree leaf, and carried it on her shoulder. After a minute, Millsy managed to exit the cave as well and saw a massive meteor heading toward the planet. Millsy used his device to confirm what he was seeing. As for the small meteor, it was just a broken piece of the larger meteor currently approaching. According to the device, the massive meteor was expected to hit Earth within hours. Its enormous size would destroy all forms of life on the planet. Millsy wasted no time and quickly went to look for Koa. He found Koa when he heard Koa screaming because a dinosaur was attacking Koa. I fled from the dinosaur and hid in a tree trunk. Millsy ran toward Koa at full speed to save her, but unfortunately, he got stuck in quicksand. Millsy kept calling out to Koa for help, but she didn't come to him, and Millsy sank into the quicksand. Koa heard Millsy's voice calling out to Koa, so I gathered my courage and waited until the dinosaur entered the tree trunk. Koa threw the small bombs I had at the dinosaur and quickly ran away from the area. After I killed the dinosaur, Koa went to where Millsy was and used tree branches to successfully rescue him from the quicksand. As soon as Millsy got out of the quicksand, he hugged Koa gently and explained that we needed to leave this place as quickly as possible before the meteor struck the Earth. Indeed, the The two of us started running the remaining distance to the mountain. By nightfall, we finally reached its base. Millsy tied a rope around Koa and let Koa climb up first. When I reached a suitable spot, I cleverly tied the rope to support Millsy's weight, allowing him to climb up as well. After a few minutes, we both managed to reach the other part of the ship, where the escape capsule was located. As soon as Millsy entered the ship, she quickly turned on her computer to confirm with the rescue ship that it was in place. Koa started searching for her family on the ship, but unfortunately, she found all the cryo capsules destroyed. She began yelling at Mills because he lied to her, but Mills brought out his daughter Nevine's picture and told Koa that she had died during this mission. He said he wouldn't allow himself to lose Koa too. Koa sympathized with his words, hugged him, and he comforted her, apologizing for his lies. Suddenly, a piece of the massive meteor started falling to the ground. Mills and Koa rushed inside the evacuation capsule. Mills quickly activated the flight procedures, but before launching, a piece of the meteor hit the ship, separating the capsule and causing it to fall near the mountain base. This incident disrupted the launch process and knocked both of them unconscious. Moments later, Koa regained consciousness and pressed the launch button, but the capsule was upside down and needed to be adjusted to take off. Mills began waking up as well, but unfortunately, a giant dinosaur appeared and started attacking the capsule. During the attack, Mills's rifle fell to the ground, forcing him to leave the capsule to confront the dinosaur. When he reached the rifle, he discovered it was malfunctioning. Mills took some time to fix the rifle, and during that time, another dinosaur arrived to join its companion for the meal. The dinosaurs cornered Mills, and he lost hope for survival. But Koa used her wits and projected a 3D hologram of Nevine, and surprisingly, the trick worked. The dinosaurs left Mills and attacked the projection. Mills took advantage of their distraction, escaped from their trap, and fired several shots at the first dinosaur, killing it. As for the second dinosaur, it charged toward the capsule to reach Koa, but Mills appeared just in time and killed the second dinosaur as well. Fortunately, the dinosaur that attacked the capsule adjusted its position, making it ready for launch. However, the first dinosaur was pretending to be dead. It waited for the right moment and set a trap for Mills. Mills fled from the dinosaur and headed toward the hot springs area. He maneuvered through the springs and managed to trap the dinosaur in one of them. But that wasn't enough to kill the giant dinosaur. As the dinosaur got closer to Mills, Koa suddenly appeared and struck the dinosaur in the eye with a poisoned bone. The attack was extremely painful, causing the dinosaur to scream in agony. Ultimately, the dinosaur stood over a massive hot spring, and the water erupted onto its skin. After the intense battle, Mills and Koa returned to the capsule, pressed the launch button, and this time, the capsule successfully took off. It launched just moments before the meteor hit the Earth and destroyed everything on the planet. Once the capsule exited the atmosphere, the autopilot directed them toward the rendezvous point, where they would meet the rescue ship. Finally, Mills was able to close his eyes in peace, imagining returning home and reuniting with Nevine. The movie ends with a scene of Koa holding Mills's hand as a gesture of gratitude for what he did for her and to help him cope with the loss of his daughter. And that's the end of our movie. If you like the movie, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with all the new films.
Later, Howard Stark finds the Tesseract and searches for Steve's location but cannot find him. He gives Carter Steve's file and informs her that the Super Soldier Project has been completely halted since Steve's blood was the only source of the serum. 70 years pass, and Steve wakes up to find himself in a room with an old radio playing a game he had watched before. Realizing something is wrong, a woman enters, and when he asks where he is, she tells him he's in a training facility. He realizes she's lying and calls the guards. Steve fights them, destroys the place, and steps out into a world vastly different from his own, more advanced in every way. Nick Fury appears and tells him the setup was to ease the shock since he had been in stasis for 70 years. Steve is stunned upon hearing this. The story continues with Steve trying to adapt to his new life, meeting Sam during a run, and constantly outpacing him, teasing him. After the run, they greet each other and become acquainted. Later, Natasha arrives and takes Steve with her on a mission to rescue hostages from a ship. The person with them explains the mission, showing pictures of the hostages, including scientists and officers. Captain America devises a plan and assigns Natasha her role. They arrive at the location by plane, and Steve jumps off without a parachute, surprising a soldier who remarks that Steve didn't wear one. The commander responds, "He doesn't need one." Steve boards the ship, taking down all the guards with his incredible strength. Natasha and the rest of the team arrive, freeing the hostages. Steve contacts Natasha, who isn't at her post. A mysterious man appears, engaging Steve in a fierce fight. The man is very strong and provokes Steve, who grows frustrated and defeats him. Steve then finds Natasha extracting data from the ship, unaware of her mission. She tells him the primary mission was retrieving the data, not rescuing the hostages, angering Steve. During their conversation, the man regains consciousness and throws a grenade at them, which they narrowly escape. After completing the mission, they return to the SHIELD headquarters. Steve confronts Nick Fury, expressing his frustration for being kept in the dark. Fury tries to calm him down and shows him their secret project, a massive aircraft connected to artificial intelligence capable of eliminating any target within seconds, regardless of their numbers. The system can precisely identify its targets. However, Steve disapproves of the project, calling it terrorism rather than protection, and leaves in anger. Steve visits a museum featuring his old team's photos, documentaries of their achievements, and a picture of his late friend Bucky, which deeply moves him. He also sees a video of Carter talking about him. Carter is still alive but very old. Steve visits her, and they talk, but she has Alzheimer's and doesn't remember anything, which makes him very sad. Then we see Fury securing his office and playing the flash drive he got, but it's encrypted. He goes to Pierce, one of SHIELD's leaders, and asks him to delay the project. Pierce tells him it's not easy, will take time, but he'll try. Fury leaves, and while driving his car, he senses something strange. Suddenly, cars ambush him and try to kill him, shooting at him repeatedly. However, his car is armored, and he tries to escape. Then someone appears in front of him and blows up the car. When Fury goes to finish him off, he finds he's gone as Fury manages to escape. Later, we see Steve returning home and meeting his neighbor, who tells him he left the music on. Realizing something's wrong, he goes back and tries to enter through the window, only to find Nick Fury inside, injured. Fury writes to him that there are listening devices in the place and that they are being watched. Suddenly, shots are fired at Fury, who gives the flash drive to Steve and tells him to trust no one. Steve's neighbor, who turns out to be an agent, enters and says she'll call an ambulance. Captain America then chases the shooter, throws his shield at him, but the shooter easily stops it and escapes. Fury is taken to the hospital where doctors try to save him, but fail, and he dies. Steve tries to talk to Natasha, who asks what Fury was doing in his apartment. Steve is summoned by SHIELD, takes the flash drive, and goes. There he meets Pierce, who shows him a video of the person who hijacked the ship, saying someone ordered him to do it. Investigating further, they discovered it was Fury. Pierce asks Steve what Fury was doing in his apartment, but Steve says he doesn't know and that Fury only told him to trust no one. Steve leaves, but as he exits, a group of agents confronts him, seeming ready to arrest him. Steve fights them off, escaping the building as they send a plane after him, but he manages to deal with it and destroy it. Pierce then issues an order to arrest Captain America, labeling him a traitor. Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The story begins with explorers searching in the ice, and they find something strange, a ship from World War II. They contact the authorities, who arrive and begin to open it. They enter inside and find Captain America's shield. Then we go back to 1942 in Norway. We see a man running into a temple, meeting his guards and telling them they've arrived. Then soldiers storm the temple, led by their commander named Shams. They are searching for the Tesseract, a cube of energy. When the temple guard refuses to reveal its location, Shams searches the area and finds a button. When he presses it, the Tesseract appears. The guard warns him that this power cannot be controlled and could destroy him. Shams kills the guard, takes the cube, and leaves. Next, we see Steve Rogers attempting to enlist in the army. However, due to his frail and thin body, he is rejected. It turns out to be a hereditary condition he inherited from his mother. Steve keeps applying with different papers, but is always rejected. He dreams of joining the army to fight the Nazis and becoming a leader on the front lines. He also spends time watching propaganda films about the military in cinemas. One day, a man in the audience insults the army, and Steve tells him to stop. The man waits for him outside and starts beating him up. Steve, unable to defend himself, bravely says, "I can do this all day." His friend Bucky arrives, fights off the man, and helps Steve. Bucky tells Steve he has joined the army and will leave for training camp that night. Before leaving, he invites Steve to a fair. At the fair that evening, they see Howard Stark, a genius scientist, demonstrating his latest invention, a flying car. However, the car malfunctions and falls back to the ground, and Stark assures the crowd he's still working on it. Steve notices a recruitment booth for Army volunteers. He stands in front of a uniform looking small in comparison and tells Bucky he won't give up on enlisting. Steve speaks passionately about his dreams of leading the army in battle. Dr. Abraham Erskine overhears him and is impressed by Steve's determination. Bucky says goodbye and leaves. Steve goes to enlist again, and Dr. Erskine approaches him, asking why he has applied 5 times with different papers. "Do you want to kill Nazis?" he asks. Steve replies, "I don't want to kill anyone. I just want to be something." Dr. Erskine tells him about a special project, and Steve agrees to join without even knowing the details. He is accepted into the army and is overjoyed. Meanwhile, at Hydra's headquarters, we see Dr. Arnim Zola working with Shams. Using the Tesseract, they develop extremely powerful weapons fueled by its energy. Steve arrives at training camp with other soldiers. Agent Carter oversees the training and quickly puts one soldier in his place when he tries to act smart. Colonel Phillips informs the recruits that they will undergo numerous tests, and only one will be chosen for the Super Soldier Project. During the tests, Steve struggles and fails most of them. In one test, the soldiers are challenged to retrieve a flag from a tall pole. None succeed, but Steve cleverly pulls the pole down and retrieves the flag. Dr. Erskine arrives, and Colonel Phillips expresses doubts about Steve's suitability due to his physical weakness. To prove a point, Erskine throws a fake grenade at the recruits. Everyone runs away except Steve, who jumps on the grenade to shield others. Erskine tells Phillips, "I told you so." Later, Erskine tells Steve he has been chosen for the project. Steve asks why, and Erskine explains that Steve's inner goodness and lack of malice make him the ideal candidate. He also shares that the serum amplifies a person's inner traits. Evil becomes more evil, and good becomes great. Because Steve knows what it's like to be weak, he will value the strength he gains. The next day, Carter takes Steve to a secret military facility disguised as a shop. Inside, they meet Dr. Erskine, Howard Stark, and other military leaders. Steve is placed in a machine and injected with the serum. He screams in pain, but when they try to stop, he insists on continuing. After the process, Steve emerges taller, stronger, and transformed into the first super soldier. However, a Hydra spy infiltrates the facility, kills Dr. Erskine, and steals the last serum. Steve chases the spy through the city, eventually catching him as he tries to escape in a submarine. The spy swallows poison and dies, destroying the serum. Meanwhile, Shams meets with German military leaders who ridicule his project. In response, he demonstrates the Tesseract-powered weapons and kills them all. His ultimate goal is world domination. Back at the base, Steve's blood is taken for research, as it contains the only remaining traces of the serum. Colonel Phillips wants to keep Steve confined, but another officer proposes using him for propaganda to boost morale and attract recruits. Steve becomes Captain America, performing in shows and films. One day, soldiers mock him, and Steve feels disheartened. Agent Carter encourages him, reminding him of his potential. News arrives that the 107th Infantry Division, including Bucky, suffered heavy losses in a battle with Hydra. Steve asks Colonel Phillips for permission to rescue them, but Phillips refuses. Determined, Steve goes alone with Carter and Stark's help, parachuting into Hydra's base. He fights Hydra soldiers, discovers their advanced weapons, and frees the captured soldiers. When he asks about Bucky, he is told Bucky is being held in another section of the base. Steve goes to find him. So he tells him, "I left you thin," and he sees a map with all of Hydra's locations. Afterward, he takes him and tries to escape. When he sees Shams, he destroys the entire place and tells him they can't defeat him. Then the freed prisoners start fighting Hydra's men, finish them off, and Shams goes to Captain America, telling him, "We're not like ordinary people. We're destined for a greater place." Steve punches him and then reveals his true form. He then takes the Tesseract and escapes. The place collapses, time passes, and Phillips believes Steve is dead, but he reappears with all the soldiers who were prisoners, impressing Phillips greatly. From that moment on, Steve decides to become a real leader and stop doing shows. He then informs them of Hydra's locations and says he'll choose his own team. He actually goes and selects his team. Later, he visits Howard Stark to have a suit made for him. The secretary takes a liking to him, and when Carter sees them, she becomes very upset. Stark gives him a shield made of vibranium, the strongest metal on Earth. Steve and his team begin targeting all of Hydra's locations, destroying them, and Steve becomes a hero. Documentaries are made about him, and he starts engaging in numerous battles, winning them all. One day, they go on a mission to stop a train carrying weapons, Shams, and Dr. Zola. Steve and the team board the train and start fighting the soldiers, defeating them, but someone in a suit appears and starts shooting at them. Bucky is about to fall off the train. Steve tries to save him, but he falls, leaving Steve devastated as he watches his friend die before his eyes. They capture Zola, and later Phillips tries to strike a deal with him. Zola reveals that the news has spread that Steve collaborated with them and that Shams is now looking for him to kill him. Zola cooperates with them, revealing everything they want to know. Steve is deeply saddened by Bucky's death, and Carter tries to console him, telling him that Bucky died with honor and was proud of him. Steve vows to destroy Shams. He begins devising a plan to infiltrate Shams' base, rides his motorcycle, and heads there alone. He fights all of Shams' men, taking them down one by one. However, a whole battalion confronts him, captures him, and takes him to Shams. Just as Shams is about to finish him off, Captain America's team appears, killing Shams' men. Shams escapes, and the chase continues. Another soldier in a suit appears and starts shooting at Steve, but Carter arrives just in time to help him. The chase continues, with Shams boarding his plane to escape. Phillips and Carter arrive in a car, pick up Steve, and chase the plane. Steve manages to jump onto the plane, enters it, and begins fighting Shams' men, defeating them all. The plane is loaded with high-energy weapons headed for New York to destroy it. Steve confronts Shams, and during their fight, the weapon containing the Tesseract is destroyed. Shams grabs it, and it destroys him. Steve contacts Carter, telling her there's no time and that if the plane reaches New York, it will cause massive destruction. He decides to crash the plane into the ocean, sacrificing himself. He tells Carter he wished he could have danced with her and promises to meet her next week at a restaurant if he survives. He tells her he doesn't know how to dance, and she replies, "Just be there, and I'll teach you." Steve crashes into the ocean, and Carter is deeply shaken by his loss. Steve goes to the hospital to retrieve the flash drive, but finds Natasha has taken it. When he asks her if she knew Fury was behind the ship incident, she says she knew and that Fury did it because he needed to understand what was happening within SHIELD, suspecting it had been infiltrated. She tells Steve she knows who killed Fury and had faced him before, calling him the Winter Soldier. Meanwhile, Pierce holds a meeting with SHIELD's board members, urging them to activate the project immediately. Steve and Natasha try to access the flash drive, but only find a location. Suddenly, men attack them, but they manage to escape and head to the location, a site Steve remembers from before he became Captain America. Recognizing the place, he finds a hidden area and an elevator leading to an underground facility with old equipment. They insert the flash drive, which contains the consciousness of Dr. Zola. He tells them that Hydra didn't end with Schmidt's death, but instead infiltrated SHIELD and has agents everywhere. Zola explains that his body couldn't be saved, but his mind was transferred to the computer system. As he talks, a missile strikes the facility, destroying it, but Steve and Natasha survive. Later, we see Pierce at home with the person who killed Fury, revealing he orchestrated the events. When his secretary enters, he kills her. Steve seeks help from Sam, who agrees to assist. They kidnap Jasper, who was rescued from the ship, and interrogate him about Zola's project. When he refuses to talk, Natasha hits him, and they drop him from a building. But Sam saves him using his flying suit. Frightened, Jasper reveals that the project's goal is to identify and eliminate individuals who pose a future threat to Hydra, including Steve, Natasha, Bruce Banner, Hulk, and Doctor Strange. The project predicts future events and potential threats. The team decides to stop the project, but the Winter Soldier attacks, killing Jasper and firing indiscriminately. SHIELD forces arrive and capture Steve and Natasha, but they manage to escape with Fury's help, who takes them to a safe location. There, they find Fury alive. He explains that Hydra experimented on Bucky, amputating his arm and replacing it with a metal one, injecting him with a serum like the one Steve received, erasing his memory and using him for missions. After each mission, they would freeze him again. Fury gives them 3 chips to install in the project to gain control of the ships. Steve and his team infiltrate SHIELD, where Steve addresses everyone over the intercom, exposing Hydra's infiltration and Pierce's leadership. He urges them not to activate the project, as it would lead to the deaths of many innocent people. The SHIELD agents decide to help. Rumlow tries to activate the project but faces resistance and fights off agents, managing to start it and escape. Steve and Sam head to install the chips, while Pierce meets with the board members to convince them of the project's necessity. When they refuse, Natasha, disguised, intervenes, taking down Pierce and his guards. She decides to upload all SHIELD and Hydra files online, exposing the truth to the world. Fury arrives and helps her. Steve and Sam install 2 of the chips, but the Winter Soldier appears, destroying Sam's wings and knocking him to the ground. Steve and Bucky fight, with Steve trying to remind Bucky of who he is. Despite this, Bucky continues to attack. In the end, Steve manages to install the final chip just in time, causing all Hydra ships to be destroyed. As Bucky is about to die, Steve saves him, but Bucky keeps attacking. Steve tells him he won't fight back because they're friends. So Bucky hits him, the place gets destroyed, and Captain America falls into the sea. But Bucky jumps after him and manages to save him, pulling him out of the water before leaving him and walking away. Meanwhile, Pierce tries to kill Natasha, but Fury shoots him and finishes him off. Fury then boards a plane and is saved by Sam. After some time, all Hydra agents are arrested. Fury tells Steve that, in the eyes of the public, he is now dead, but he will continue working in secrecy, which will be better. He then leaves. Later, Natasha gives Steve a file on Bucky, and he decides to search for him. At the end of the film, we see Hydra agents who are still operational, conducting experiments using Loki's scepter. We also see them holding 2 siblings with supernatural abilities. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching. Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The story of our movie is about a little boy who was with his family on an adventure in the forest. But an accident happened that wiped out the family. The little boy was left alone in the forest. Unfortunately, no one knew his location. How could a child his age survive in the forest? Let's see if this little boy can make it. The story begins at the port. A family named Pete's family goes camping in the forest with their 2-year-old son, Pete. The family consisted of a father, a mother, and the little boy. They were happy as they embarked on this adventure. Pete had a book he loved about a dog named Elliot in the forest, and he was reading it. The father and mother were focused on him, with the father driving and explaining to his son what an adventure means. He told him that they were currently on an adventure too, and encouraged him to be brave. Suddenly, without warning, a deer appeared in front of their car. Unfortunately, the father lost control of the vehicle, and it overturned. The father and mother died, leaving Pete looking at them, not understanding what had happened, but he cried when he found himself alone. He stayed for a while beside his parents, thinking they were asleep and would wake up, but none of them woke up. Pete began to fear the sounds of wolves filling the forest as night fell. He decided to run into the forest. Suddenly, he encountered a green dragon that was initially hidden, but then appeared to Pete. Pete asked if it would eat him, but the dragon didn't respond. Instead, it extended its hand. When Pete touched it, the dragon's color turned to a lighter green, a sign that the dragon liked him. The dragon sat beside Pete, then carried him and took him to its lair. 6 years passed since the incident. We see an old lumberjack named Sam telling children about a green dragon he saw when he was young. He said he was about to kill it, but the dragon breathed fire and attacked him, and he miraculously survived. We see his daughter Grace telling the children that this story is a lie, and that no one should believe in dragons because she has been in the forest for 20 years and has never seen one. We learn that Grace works in environmental protection and loves the forest so much that she spends most of her time there. She loves all animals and knows them well, but her father tells her that just because she hasn't seen a dragon doesn't mean it doesn't exist. She replies that a story isn't enough proof of a dragon's existence. She tells them she's heading to the forest and will let them know if she sees a dragon or not. However, Sam is confident that he saw it. He explains that the dragon can disappear and only shows itself to those it chooses. He tells the children that if they believe in things, they will see them. In the forest, we see Pete chasing a rabbit. Pete, now 8 years old, has grown but isn't aware of reality like ordinary humans. Pete catches the rabbit and plays with it, but he's startled by a wolf standing behind him, growling to scare him. But the bear doesn't move, and Elliot, the dragon, appears behind Pete. Pete had named the dragon after the dog in his story. The bear runs away as soon as it sees Elliot. Pete thinks the wolf was scared of him and feels happy. But when he realizes Elliot was behind him, he understands what happened and laughs. Pete asks Elliot to take him to the river. They run through the forest and reach the river, playing in the water. It's clear that Pete is happy and that Elliot has been raising and protecting him all this time. Elliot decides to play hide-and-seek with Pete, using his power of invisibility, but Pete manages to find him, and they continue playing. Pete climbs onto Elliot's back, and the dragon flies high into the sky. Pete is overjoyed, and it seems this isn't the first time he's flown with Elliot. Elliot takes Pete back to the cave where they sleep. They sit and gaze at the stars. Elliot knows the stars well because his family was once in the forest, just like Pete. The next day, Pete and Elliot are playing in the forest as usual, but they are surprised to see Grace in the forest. Elliot quickly uses his invisibility power, while Pete follows her unnoticed. He sees her marking trees with red paint to stop them from being cut down. Pete observes her and notices she's holding a compass. When she moves to another tree, Pete runs and takes the compass without her noticing. Grace senses movement, but doesn't see anyone. Her colleague calls her to leave. Before leaving, she goes to the bulldozers cutting the trees and throws their keys into the forest to get rid of them. Her colleague, who is also her fiancé, Jack, is surprised she's sabotaging the work because the project belongs to him. But she explains that her brother Gavin is responsible for the illegal logging and doesn't follow Jack's guidelines. That's why she's opposing Gavin's work, as he only cares about money. We learn that Grace and Jack are getting married at the end of the month. After they leave, Pete and Elliot see what's happening and are puzzled by the machines. Elliot climbs onto one of the bulldozers and accidentally destroys it. They return to the cave, where Pete admires the compass and the picture inside it. He then goes back to his place and sleeps in Elliot's arms, telling him a story from his childhood that taught him how to read. Both of them finally fall asleep. Hours later, a new day begins, and Pete wakes up to the sound of trees being cut and bulldozers at work. He tries to wake Elliot to go see what's happening, but Elliot is in a deep sleep. Pete decides to go alone to investigate. Pete watches as Gavin, Jack's brother, cuts down trees. Jack and Grace confront Gavin, arguing that his actions are wrong and that venturing further into the forest is dangerous. They warn him that his actions will leave no trees to cut in the future, but Gavin only cares about the money and the profits the timber will bring to their factory. Grace and Jack argue with Gavin to stop his intrusion into the forest. Jack's daughter, Natalie, from his first marriage, reminds him she's late for school. She gets out of the car and sees Pete from a distance. When Pete runs into the forest, Natalie follows him. Pete keeps running and hides behind a tree, but Natalie continues to search for him. She finally spots him up in a tree and tries to talk to him, but he hides. She decides to climb the tree, but as she reaches the branch, it breaks and she falls. Luckily, Pete grabs her hand just before she hits the ground. She begs him not to let go. She screams for help, and her cries alert the adults, who run toward the sound. Pete, unable to hold her weight any longer, lets go and she falls. Fortunately, the ground is close, and she only gets a minor injury. Natalie has an injury in her legs, and Pete goes to check on her. Natalie meets him, and he tells her his name, but he is puzzled by her and her attire. He takes her to her family, who are relieved to see her. Her father asks what led her into the forest, and she points toward Pete's house, saying she followed him. They are surprised to find Pete living alone and try to talk to him, but he is scared. Grace notices the onion-like object around his neck and realizes he took it from her, and it wasn't lost. Pete, out of fear, climbs a tree again, but Gavin runs after him and grabs him by the leg. Unfortunately, the tree branch breaks, causing Pete to fall and hit his head on the ground, rendering him unconscious. Meanwhile, Elliot finally wakes up and starts looking for Pete, thinking he is playing hide-and-seek as usual. He searches everywhere but can't find him and keeps calling out for him. Gavin hears the sound and asks his brother if he heard anything strange. His brother denies it and dismisses the sounds as an excuse for Gavin to enter the forest. Jack leaves to check on Pete, who was taken to the hospital, while Elliot watches them from afar and realizes they are the ones who took Jack. Gavin decides to continue his work, but Elliot accidentally knocks over a tree because it couldn't bear his weight. No one sees him, but as he tries to escape, he topples a few more trees, which Gavin and the workers notice. Gavin instructs them to prepare for a hunt, and they ready their guns and head into the forest. At the hospital, Pete regains consciousness, but doesn't recognize where he is. Grace observes him from behind the door and contacts social services to find out if he has been missing for a long time. She confirms that he is indeed lost, as his health condition is very poor, and he has significant vitamin deficiencies. Natalie arrives to check on him and learns that the child escaped. Pete is seen running in the streets, not knowing where to go. Eventually, he reaches the forest and Elliot. He jumps onto cars, startling people, and even attacks a dog on the street, causing fear among the onlookers. He keeps running with the police chasing after him until he reaches a dead-end street. Grace arrives and calms him down, assuring him that she won't hurt him. She manages to catch him, but he screams loudly, almost as if calling out to someone in the forest. By then, Gavin and his men had reached large footprints, confirming it wasn't a bear, as no bear is that size. Since they were venturing deeper into the forest than ever before, they were uncertain about what they might encounter. Grace decides to take Pete home with her and return him to social services the next day. She takes him to her house in her car, and Pete is bewildered by everything around him. When they arrive at her home, Pete tries to run away, but Grace catches him and asks why he is running. He tells her he wants to return to his home in the forest. She promises him that if he stays with her for the night, she will personally take him to the forest the next day. She explains that she loves the forest and was appointed to protect it and everything in it, including him. Pete asks if Elliot is included, and she asks him who Elliot is. Before he can answer, Jack calls out to them, and they go inside for dinner. Jack is happy they rescued Pete from the forest because no one knows how he got there or who he lived with. Meanwhile, in the forest, Gavin's workers urge him to return, as they have wandered too far and have been lost for some time. They circle around the river without finding anything until they finally discover Elliot's cave. They are astonished that a child could build such a home. They enter the cave and Elliot hides to avoid being seen. However, when Gavin grabs a book inside, Elliot becomes furious and starts attacking them. The workers are unable to see him. Elliot topples trees over them, and no one understands what is happening. He pulls a car and causes Gavin to fall from it. Gavin is terrified when he sees his weapon bent in a strange way, realizing the hidden creature is enormous and powerful. Elliot reveals himself to Gavin, who, out of fear, drops his weapon and quickly returns to the car. He and his team finally flee, but they don't realize that Elliot is flying after them to find out where his home is. Back at Grace's house, Pete is enjoying his time. Grace teaches him to brush his teeth and shows him new tools that sing, making him very happy. Elliot continues his journey and sneaks into a lumber warehouse. Meanwhile, Grace receives a call from the sheriff, who informs her that Pete's family died a long time ago, and that Pete himself was presumed dead because no one found him with his family's bodies. They assumed wolves had eaten him. The sheriff tells her that social services will come the next day to take Pete into care. Elliot is still searching hospitals for Pete, but no one believes the children who claim to have seen him. At this time, Pete is with Natalie, drawing a picture of Elliot. She asks if Elliot is imaginary because he looks like a dragon. Pete asks if she is imaginary, and she says no. He tells her that Elliot is just like her, real. Natalie explains that Elliot is his friend, similar to the story Sam once told them about a green dragon lost in the forest who used to live in the north. Grace overhears them from the stairs and decides to talk to Pete. She asks Natalie to leave them alone for a while and begins to get to know Pete better. She tells him that her mother died when she was his age and asks if he remembers how he got to the forest. He says they were on an adventure, and that's all he can recall. He then met Elliot, and they lived together. When she asks who Elliot is, he shows her the picture he drew. She remembers her father's story about the green dragon and thinks this can't be a coincidence. Grace decides to take Pete to the forest the next day to investigate the dragon and understand how he survived all this time alone in the forest. Later, Gavin arrives at his brother's house and tells him that a dragon attacked them in the heart of the forest. Jack doesn't believe him and accuses him of making up a story just to justify going deeper into the forest. Gavin is upset and tells Jack he thought he could rely on him, then leaves in frustration. Grace overhears their conversation and starts to think Gavin might be telling the truth, especially since Elliot told her the same thing. She wonders how all these people could be lying. Meanwhile, Elliot spots Pete with Grace, looking happy, and decides to leave without him, thinking it's better for Pete to be with people like him. Grace goes to her father's house, searching for a drawing of the dragon. When her father sees her, he asks what she is looking for. She tells him about Pete's story, and he asks again what she needs. She requests a true story, not the ones he used to tell children. Sam begins to recount how, when he was young, he went hunting in the forest. Unfortunately, he ventured too far and ended up near the river. Suddenly, he felt something behind him. When he turned around, he saw a green dragon with orange eyes. He was about to pull out his weapon to kill it, but stopped when he saw the dragon sitting still. Out of fear, he held on to his weapon, and the two stared at each other until the dragon turned its head away. Not long after, he completely disappeared from sight, and since that day, he couldn't see him again. Grace tells the seller that he might have a chance to meet him again because of his home, and she apologizes to him for not believing him all those past years. The next morning, Pete wakes up to Grace's voice waking him up to go to the forest. She and Natalie prepare to go with him. Jack learns that she is going to the affairs office to hand over Pete, but of course, she is lying because she is heading to the forest. On the way, she passes by the office and is confused about whether to hand him over or return him to the land. She decides to leave and lets the waiting employee return to his home. On the way, Pete learns that a third person will join them who knows the goal well. It turns out to be Sam, Grace's son. Jack returns to work and finds out that the forest is in danger. However, he asks the workers why the tools are there and learns that they are going hunting, not cutting trees. Jack is surprised but doesn't pay much attention. When he enters his office, he receives a call from the affairs employee who informs him that Grace hasn't arrived yet, even though they had an appointment. Jack becomes more suspicious and thinks she might have gone to the forest as well. He decides to go check on them. Finally, Pete reaches the forest and runs ahead of them while they follow him. He reaches the cave and searches for the creature, which is hiding inside. They enter the cave. At the same time, Gavin and his team also arrive in the forest. The creature emerges alone, and they are told to stay calm for it to appear. Indeed, it shows itself, and everyone is shocked. But Pete reassures them. They approach it normally and everyone is happy, including the creature. However, no one notices Gavin, who is holding a tranquilizer gun. He shoots the creature in the neck. The creature becomes frightened and starts attacking them. They throw a net over it and capture it, but it manages to free itself and tries to fly away. However, shortly after it takes off, it falls again due to the effect of the tranquilizer. Pete sits crying beside it. Later, it is transported in a large truck belonging to Jack's wood storage. Pete thinks all of this is Grace's plan, and she cannot clear her name. Gavin is also upset with his brother for what he did because he wants to capture a free creature. When they arrive, they call the negotiator to come and see the creature and handle it. Gavin brags about what he did, claiming he will own the creature, which will bring him great wealth since everyone believes dragons are extinct. People would pay to see this living miracle. Everyone heads to the lab, but the workers are prevented from seeing it by Gavin and his guards. Pete asks Natalie to help him free the creature because he doesn't like anyone capturing it. She decides to help him. Outside, the negotiator arrives. Gavin describes the miracle he found, saying only he and his guards can handle it. The negotiator tells him to get to the point and open the door. However, Pete and Natalie are inside and have locked the door. When they break the door, they find nothing inside. The negotiator laughs at Gavin, asking if he brought him to see a new car. Jack insists on his brother's claim that there really was a dragon there. Everyone then goes out to search for it. Only Grace manages to spot it and realizes it's hiding. She informs Jack and asks for his help to make it escape. Meanwhile, the children are in the car, thinking about how to drive it to help the creature, which still can't fly. Grandpa Sam arrives offering to help them. Pete is initially worried about him, but learns that he is on their side and supports the creature. Sam gets in the car and starts driving it, breaking out of the storage in front of everyone. The negotiator finally sees the dragon and is astonished. Everyone chases after them in cars, but Grace throws Gavin's keys to slow him down. She gets into Jack's car, and a chase ensues on the road. Grandpa tells the creature to hold on tight since the chase seems long. The cars try to hit them, and due to the creature's weight, the car's brakes fail without anyone noticing. Gavin manages to get ahead of them and blocks the road with his car. He thinks Sam will stop, and he indeed tries to, but the brakes don't work. Sam honks at Gavin to move, but Gavin misinterprets it as recklessness. Unfortunately, the cars collide, and the vehicle carrying the creature flips over. The creature comes out and starts attacking the cars, breathing fire for the first time, destroying the bridge. Jack and Grace's car nearly falls off. Gavin tries to save them but cannot hold on, and the car falls. Pete begs the creature to save them, saying he needs them. The creature feels sorry for Pete and grabs the car, but the bridge collapses with everyone on it. They all fall, including the creature. After a while, the creature emerges, flying with them on its back. It lands on the ground, and Grace hugs her father in fear. Jack holds his crying daughter. Finally, Pete approaches the creature, which flies him back to the forest and disappears into the clouds, unreachable by anyone. They finally reach the forest, but the cave is destroyed. Pete tells the creature they need to find a new home because humans know the place. But the creature refuses and gestures for him to return to the humans and live with them. They say goodbye, but it's not their last farewell. On the way, she passes by the office and is confused about whether to hand him over or return him to the land. She decides to leave and lets the waiting employee return to his home. On the way, Pete learns that a third person will join them who knows the goal well. It turns out to be Sam, Grace's son. Jack returns to work and finds out that the forest is in danger. However, he asks the workers why the tools are there and learns that they are going hunting, not cutting trees. Jack is surprised but doesn't pay much attention. When he enters his office, he receives a call from the affairs employee who informs him that Grace hasn't arrived yet, even though they had an appointment. Jack becomes more suspicious and thinks she might have gone to the forest as well. He decides to go check on them. Finally, Pete reaches the forest and runs ahead of them while they follow him. He reaches the cave and searches for the creature, which is hiding inside. They enter the cave. At the same time, Gavin and his team also arrive in the forest. The creature emerges alone, and they are told to stay calm for it to appear. Indeed, it shows itself, and everyone is shocked. But Pete reassures them. They approach it normally and everyone is happy, including the creature. However, no one notices Gavin, who is holding a tranquilizer gun. He shoots the creature in the neck. The creature becomes frightened and starts attacking them. They throw a net over it and capture it, but it manages to free itself and tries to fly away. However, shortly after it takes off, it falls again due to the effect of the tranquilizer. Pete sits crying beside it. Later, it is transported in a large truck belonging to Jack's wood storage. Pete thinks all of this is Grace's plan, and she cannot clear her name. Gavin is also upset with his brother for what he did because he wants to capture a free creature. When they arrive, they call the negotiator to come and see the creature and handle it. Gavin brags about what he did, claiming he will own the creature, which will bring him great wealth since everyone believes dragons are extinct. People would pay to see this living miracle. Everyone heads to the lab, but the workers are prevented from seeing it by Gavin and his guards. Pete asks Natalie to help him free the creature because he doesn't like anyone capturing it. She decides to help him. Outside, the negotiator arrives. Gavin describes the miracle he found, saying only he and his guards can handle it. The negotiator tells him to get to the point and open the door. However, Pete and Natalie are inside and have locked the door. When they break the door, they find nothing inside. The negotiator laughs at Gavin, asking if he brought him to see a new car. Jack insists on his brother's claim that there really was a dragon there. Everyone then goes out to search for it. Only Grace manages to spot it and realizes it's hiding. She informs Jack and asks for his help to make it escape. Meanwhile, the children are in the car, thinking about how to drive it to help the creature, which still can't fly. Grandpa Sam arrives offering to help them. Pete is initially worried about him, but learns that he is on their side and supports the creature. Sam gets in the car and starts driving it, breaking out of the storage in front of everyone. The negotiator finally sees the dragon and is astonished. Everyone chases after them in cars, but Grace throws Gavin's keys to slow him down. She gets into Jack's car, and a chase ensues on the road. Grandpa tells the creature to hold on tight since the chase seems long. The cars try to hit them, and due to the creature's weight, the car's brakes fail without anyone noticing. Gavin manages to get ahead of them and blocks the road with his car. He thinks Sam will stop, and he indeed tries to, but the brakes don't work. Sam honks at Gavin to move, but Gavin misinterprets it as recklessness. Unfortunately, the cars collide, and the vehicle carrying the creature flips over. The creature comes out and starts attacking the cars, breathing fire for the first time, destroying the bridge. Jack and Grace's car nearly falls off. Gavin tries to save them but cannot hold on, and the car falls. Pete begs the creature to save them, saying he needs them. The creature feels sorry for Pete and grabs the car, but the bridge collapses with everyone on it. They all fall, including the creature. After a while, the creature emerges, flying with them on its back. It lands on the ground, and Grace hugs her father in fear. Jack holds his crying daughter. Finally, Pete approaches the creature, which flies him back to the forest and disappears into the clouds, unreachable by anyone. They finally reach the forest, but the cave is destroyed. Pete tells the creature they need to find a new home because humans know the place. But the creature refuses and gestures for him to return to the humans and live with them. They say goodbye, Welcome to Plot Twist, where we dive into the heart of cinema's most unexpected moments. Every story has a twist, but some twists leave you speechless. Are you ready for the twist? The movie begins in the year 62 AD. There is a child named Milo who is asleep, unaware that his life is about to change that very night. Suddenly, Roman armies attack the village where Milo lives. He wakes up startled by the sound of soldiers' swords and the ground shaking under the fort. Milo cautiously gets up to see what's happening and finds the Roman armies committing a massacre, killing all the villagers. The battle continues, and Milo watches in shock until the Roman soldiers kill his father right before his eyes. At that moment, his mother tries to escape with him, but fails. The commander orders the soldiers to eliminate all the villagers as a warning to anyone who dares to oppose the Roman Empire. The soldiers carry out the order, and Milo watches as his parents are killed, leaving him the sole survivor among the dead. Afterward, Milo wanders through the forest, not knowing where to go or what to do, until he collapses under a tree to rest. Milo falls asleep, and the next morning, a group of people passing through the forest find him. Their leader decides to take him as a slave. 17 years pass, and Milo grows into a strong young man, earning the nickname the Cat. He enters an arena to fight 3 strong fighters belonging to the leader Crassus. These fighters are so powerful that no one has ever defeated them, except for Milo, who bravely enters and kills them. Crassus is greatly impressed by Milo's courage and strength and decides to buy him and add him to his slaves. However, Batiatus, a servant of Crassus, becomes very upset with Milo because one of the 3 fighters Milo killed was his brother. Despite his anger, Batiatus obeys Crassus's orders and takes Milo and the other slaves to Pompeii. On their journey, they encounter the convoy of Princess Cassia and her mother, Lady Cassia, whose carriage gets stuck in a ditch. The horse pulling the carriage falls and begins to suffer. Milo sees this and asks Batiatus to untie him so he can help the horse, but Batiatus, still harboring resentment, strikes him instead. Princess Cassia intervenes and orders Batiatus to release Milo. Batiatus complies, and Milo goes to assist the horse, only to find that its neck is broken. He decides to end the horse's suffering with a merciful death. Afterward, Milo rejoins the other slaves, and Princess Cassia thanks him for his kindness. They all arrive in Pompeii, where the princess quickly heads to her horse, which she misses dearly. Meanwhile, the slaves, including Milo, are taken to the prison. There, everyone already knows about Milo and his strength, and they anticipate his arrival. Among the slaves is Atticus, known for his strength. However, after Milo's feat in defeating the fighters, everyone starts talking about Milo's power, claiming he is stronger than Atticus. This angers Atticus, who becomes hostile toward Milo from the moment he learns of his arrival in Pompeii. At the same time, Atticus has an important upcoming fight that he is excited about because, if he wins, Crassus has promised to free him. Later, Batiatus and another servant provoke Milo while he is eating. Milo fights back, and a brawl ensues until Crassus appears, punishing Batiatus for the chaos and locking Milo in the same cell as Atticus. Meanwhile, Felix, the princess's guard, takes her to the lake, but a sudden disturbance in the water occurs due to an erupting volcano in the area. Felix fails to escape and drowns in the water. Afterward, all the prisoners are released from their cells, and Batiatus asks Atticus to choose someone to fight in the arena. Atticus chooses Milo, and they begin training with wooden swords. Atticus proves to be very strong, and Milo struggles to defeat him, but eventually Milo manages to knock him down. Batiatus then tries to kill Milo, but Atticus saves him. Batiatus returns all the prisoners to their cells, and Milo asks Atticus why he saved him. Atticus replies that it is a fighter's honor to die in battle, and that one should face death head-on, not from behind. Senator Quintus visits Pompeii, accompanied by his friend Commander Proculus. The Prince Severus and his wife visit the senator to apologize for not welcoming him at the port due to being preoccupied. They discuss the new emperor, Titus, and the city's conditions, including ongoing repairs and improvements. Meanwhile, Princess Cassia argues with her mother about her father inviting Quintus to Pompeii. At that moment, Cassia's horse appears running toward their palace without its guard, Felix, which surprises her. She runs to the horse and tries to calm it down. The scene shifts back to Milo and Atticus in their cell. Milo asks Atticus how he feels about tomorrow being his last day in prison. Atticus replies that after he kills Milo in battle, he will gain his freedom. However, Milo warns Atticus that they are lying to him and deceiving him, but Atticus insists that he trusts the laws of Rome. Later, the prince hosts a reception for the senator, inviting Crassus, who brings Atticus and Milo along. At the reception, Milo sees Proculus, the commander of the army that killed his father and destroyed his village 17 years ago. At that time, Princess Cassia sees Milo at the party. Severus joins the channel and deceives to introduce him to Senator Quintus. At that moment, he is surprised that they already know each other. Quintus tells him he will explain all the details tomorrow at the awaited battle. After that, Prince Severus leaves after Senator Quintus asks him to. Quintus then proposes to Cassia, asking her to marry him and travel with him to Rome. However, she refuses, leaves him, and exits. At that moment, the volcano erupts again, causing a violent tremor in the area. Milo is confused about what is happening, but Atticus explains it to him. The princess's horse becomes very agitated, so So Princess Cassia orders Bellator to release Milo and asks him to come with her to the stables to calm the horse. Milo follows her orders and requests to approach the horse alone. After some time, the princess enters and finds the horse completely calm. She is very surprised and asks Milo if he was a knight before. Milo tells her his story, explaining that his entire family was killed by the Romans. Suddenly, guards call for the princess. Milo asks the princess to ride with him on the horse. Milo rides the horse and escapes from the palace with Cassia. However, after some distance, he feels he might endanger the princess, so he decides to return her to the palace. She tells him to leave her and flee the city, but he refuses. Milo and the princess return to the palace, where Senator Quintus intends to kill Milo. However, the princess saves him by telling the senator that Milo is not at fault and that the horse was the one that bolted because it was agitated. The senator spares Milo due to the princess's request, but Crassus suggests that Milo be whipped 15 lashes to ensure he doesn't repeat his actions. Milo is indeed whipped, and afterward, Proculus tells Crassus to ensure Milo is killed in the next fight. Later, Milo is taken to the dungeon by Atticus, who tends to Milo's wounds. While they are there, a violent earthquake occurs, and Milo begins to talk to Atticus about his family and how he saw Proculus at the party, the man who killed his entire family. Atticus reveals that the Romans also killed his family when he was a child, but he cannot remember their faces. The two begin to bond and become friends. The day of the long-awaited battle arrives and preparations begin. Crassus and Bellator conspire to kill Atticus during the show to prevent him from gaining his freedom. Crassus notices that the prison walls have weakened due to the earthquake and fears they might collapse. He asks Prince Severus to postpone the battle, but the prince refuses, arguing that the prison has withstood many earthquakes over the years and remains unaffected. Crassus orders his assistant to prepare his carriage as he plans to leave the city temporarily. Guards begin escorting Milo, Atticus, and the other prisoners to the arena. The prisoners are chained to a large rock to prevent anyone from escaping. A large group of soldiers, outnumbering Milo and his group, enters the arena. Senator Quintus announces the start of the battle, and the soldiers begin their attack. The fight is intense, with the soldiers dominating due to their numbers. Milo suggests to his team of prisoners to climb a rock to gain a better position to fight. The soldiers manage to knock down several prisoners from Milo's group. Meanwhile, Cassia watches Milo from the stands, deeply worried about him. The senator asks her if she loves Milo, but she refuses to answer. He then reveals that he has arranged her marriage to Prince Severus with her father's agreement. However, the prince denies this, leading to a heated argument. At the same time, Atticus manages to topple a rock onto a large number of soldiers, killing them. He mounts Milo's horse and uses the chain he is bound with to fight off attacking soldiers. Bellator sees this and pulls on the chain, causing Milo to fall off the horse. A soldier attacks Milo to kill him, but Atticus saves him. Milo then kills Bellator, takes the Roman emblem, and rebels against the senator. He breaks the emblem and throws a sharp piece at the senator to kill him, but Proculus saves the senator. Senator Quintus becomes enraged and orders all the soldiers to enter the arena and eliminate everyone. As the soldiers prepare their arrows to follow the senator's orders, Cassia intervenes. The senator becomes furious with her, but she deceives him by saying that killing Milo now would make him a martyr. The senator then orders Proculus to imprison Cassia in the palace. At the same time, another earthquake occurs due to the volcano, causing chaos among the spectators. The senator calms them, stating that if Milo wants to become a people's hero, he must face Rome's first champion, Proculus, in battle. Proculus enters the arena and the fight begins. Proculus proves to be a very strong opponent and manages to break Milo's sword. Milo asks the guards for another sword to continue the fight. At that moment, a stronger earthquake occurs, causing buildings to collapse and the spectators to flee. The senator orders Proculus to kill Milo, but the ground splits beneath them, and they fall underground to continue their battle. Meanwhile, the senator, Prince Severus, Cassia, and her parents are caught in the collapsing buildings. Underground, there is an intense fight between Milo and Proculus. Milo gains the upper hand but opens the prison gates, allowing Proculus to escape. The other prisoners also escape, attacking their guards. It is then revealed that the senator, Prince Severus, and Cassia's parents are still alive. Prince Severus grabs a weapon and attacks the senator to kill him, but the senator defends himself and kills the prince. The senator then orders Proculus to flee to the harbor quickly. At the harbor, people are desperately trying to board ships to escape the city, but the guards stop them. Crassus appears and threatens the guards to let him board. Milo arrives trying to save Cassia's father, but Cassia's father dies. At that moment, the volcano erupts violently, raining fire upon the city. Milo rushes to find Cassia and save her. When Ottocus tried to stop him because it was very dangerous for him, Milo refused and insisted that he must save Cassia. Ottocus asked him to go with him, but Milo refused and asked him to wait at the port. At the same time, all the guards assigned by Proculus to protect Cassia fled. Her maid Aden was trying to help her but couldn't, and the city walls were collapsing. Milo arrived just in time and managed to save Cassia. Then a stronger earthquake occurred, causing the prison to fall into the sea along with Cassia's maid Aden. Cassia broke down, but Milo comforted her and told her there was no time and they had to leave the city. The streets were filled with people trying to escape. The senator ordered the guards to kill the people to clear the way. Meanwhile, while escaping on his ship, ship, Proculus's vessel was struck by volcanic fire and destroyed. Suddenly, a tsunami began to form in the sea. As he tried to escape the port, he saw a girl lying on the ground being trampled by the crowd. He turned back to save her and managed to rescue her and her mother, moving them to a relatively safe place away from the port. Milo met Cassia and was informed that the port was completely destroyed. Cassia suggested they head to the southern hill, far from the volcano, but they needed horses. They returned to the combat arena to search for horses in the stables, but found none. Suddenly, some soldiers appeared and they hid from them. During this time, Cassia went to bid farewell to her father and mother, but was intercepted by the senator, who kidnapped her and tied her to his chariot. Just as he was about to escape with her, Milo and Oticus arrived in time. The senator ordered his soldiers to kill them and escaped with Cassia. Milo and Oticus fought the soldiers alone and managed to defeat them. Proculus remained, and Oticus told Milo to go after Cassia while he faced Proculus. Proculus proved to be very strong and managed to stab Oticus in the stomach. However, Oticus gathered his strength and defeated him. Milo chased the senator, and as he pursued him, a gap appeared in front of Milo. His horse managed to jump over it, but the senator's chariot hit a stone, overturned, and the senator fell. Milo stopped to check on Cassia, but at that moment, the senator attacked him with a sword to kill him. Cassia intervened, and they fought. A massive fiery boulder from the volcano fell on them. The senator emerged alone from the smoke and attacked Milo again. Cassia tied him to the chariot, and Milo grabbed a sword from one of the soldiers to kill the senator, telling him, "You killed my entire family in the past." Then the volcano hurled a fireball at them, and they mounted a horse to escape quickly. However, the horse stumbled, throwing them off. Milo told Cassia to escape, but she refused and stayed with him. The volcanic ash engulfed them, freezing them in place. With that, the movie ends. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an update. See
Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The events begin with two flight attendants named Paula and Jenny on their way to the airport for a flight. Paula was excited about this trip because she planned to attend a party after they reached their destination. Jenny joked, "We'll have a blast." They arrived at the airport and began checking the passenger list with Captain Forrest and his assistant, Willie. The number of passengers was very low on this flight because of the bad weather. We noticed that Willie looks unwell, with red eyes, and he tells them he was infected by his dog, which has the flu. Paula wishes him a speedy recovery. Later, Jenny steps off the plane to greet a passenger named George, who had a bad attitude. He was upset with his father for making him travel alone. After a while, the passengers start boarding the plane, beginning with Dr. Ken, a paralyzed doctor who cannot speak. His wife, Biff, lovingly takes care of him. At this moment, Ralph arrives. When he sits down, he struggles to fasten his seatbelt. We then see a scientist named Henry boarding with a cage of rats. The flight attendant jokes, "They're not allowed on board." Ralph said to him, "I'll take them." There is an empty space, but one of the rats suddenly bites him, but he brushes it off, showing no concern. Jenny takes the cage and says she'll place it with the luggage below. We notice some chemistry between Henry and Jenny. Eventually, everyone fastens their seatbelts, and the plane takes off. Henry watches the news and learns that intelligence forces raided a terrorist lab conducting experiments on animals and humans to alter their genes. Meanwhile, Paula and Jenny chat, and Jenny notices Ralph looking ill. When she approaches him, he vomits on her face. They bring a first aid kit to help him, but a passenger's cat starts eating Ralph's vomit unnoticed. Jenny goes to the bathroom to clean her clothes, cursing Ralph. When she comes out, Ralph suddenly charges at her like a bull, banging on the plane door hysterically, shouting, "I need to get off the plane, I'm dying." The passengers restrain him, tying him up until he loses consciousness. One of the passengers, Shelley, a military nurse, examines those who were injured during the scuffle. The captain announces that they will land at the nearest airport due to worsening weather, which poses a significant problem. The flight attendants instruct everyone to fasten their seatbelts as the plane shakes violently because of the strong winds. Jenny tells the passengers to lower their heads for safety. Ralph, unconscious, lies near the plane door. Paula and Jenny lift him onto a seat and try to fasten his seatbelt. Suddenly, Ralph wakes up and bites Paula on her nose. Ralph, now making terrifying noises, tries to bite another passenger, but Henry intervenes and locks him in the bathroom. The plane lands, but the gate won't open. The airport staff instructs them to wait, but the captain defies orders, parking the plane directly in front of the exit gate. A man named Ed opens the gate for them. As passengers begin to disembark, Forrest and Willie block the bathroom door to prevent Ralph from escaping and attacking anyone. All passengers leave except Dr. Ken and his wife, Biff. The passengers reach the exit door, only to find that airport officials have locked it. Ed tries to call for help, but receives no response. He decides to lead the passengers to a staff exit, but that door is also locked. They are confused about why the officials are trapping them. Ed attempts to activate the electric generator to open the automatic doors, but it's futile. Surveillance cameras monitor them, and Ed informs the group that they're being watched. They hear the sound of police cars and ambulances, feeling relieved, thinking help has arrived. But when they peek through a small opening, they are shocked to see the police aiming weapons at them. A police officer announces that they are under quarantine and must wait for further assistance to ensure their safety. The passengers are devastated and try to contact their families, but there's no network signal. They begin to panic, asking Jenny what to do. She responds, "How would I know? I'm just a flight attendant like you all." Shelley calms them down, mentioning she has medical supplies in her bag, which is still on the plane with the rest of the luggage. It's a risky move, but they decide to retrieve the bag. As Jenny and a few others head back to the plane, the airport officials cut off the electricity. It was a big problem, but Ed takes action, turns on the flashlight, and leads them to the plane. When they arrive, they don't find Willie or First, so they realize they left the airport. Jenny opens the plane's bathroom door, thinking it's empty, but it's full of blood. This means that Ralph has escaped. While they're walking, Dr. Kino appears and scares them. They don't find his wife, Bev, with him, so they understand that she left the airport with First and Willie. After a while, they reach the passenger's luggage, and a man named Neil pulls his gun from his bag. Jenny manages to get Shelley's bag without making any noise to avoid attracting attention. Suddenly, Ed gets startled as a branch moves under his feet. They find the hamster cage open and realize one of them has escaped. As they leave the luggage area, Jenny sees the pilot walking away from the plane door, moving like a rat and making similar noises before running outside the plane. Jenny feels someone is behind her, and she's terrified. When she turns around, she finds the pilot, First, with red eyes trying to bite her. But the rest of the group arrives just in time to save her. Ed fights him, and Neil shoots him with a gun, killing him. After killing the pilot First, they all leave the plane. While returning to the rest of the passengers, they find Dr. Kino fallen from his wheelchair, unable to speak and only groaning in pain, paralyzed. They take him along to join the rest of the group. Before they leave, they encounter Bev, his wife, who asks for help. The surprise is that she has transformed and tries to attack them. They quickly close the door on her and leave. Jenny gives Shelley her bag, and Shelley tries to treat Paula and stop her bleeding. Meanwhile, the group locks the door with items to prevent anyone from entering. Jenny notices blood traces on the floor and follows them to find their source, but fails to determine where they're coming from. She quickly returns to the group to avoid being surprised by anyone. Shelley tells them that the disease affecting people is a virus, and so far, the government hasn't announced it. Jenny mentions that a government building in Los Angeles had been quarantined, and the virus might have originated from there. At that moment, Dr. Kino notices a rat with red eyes above him. He tries to alert the group but can't speak, only groaning. The rat jumps on his head, and despite Kino's attempts to scream, he remains silent. George sees the rat and tries to catch it, but unfortunately, it bites Dr. Kino. They manage to capture the rat and lock it in a bucket. Shelley treats Kino's wound. The group agrees to lock both Kino and Paula in a cage to prevent them from transforming and attacking them. They move them to the cage and secure it with iron bars. Ed examines the rat and notices its leg is tied with a white plastic band, understanding that the rat had been experimented on to become this way. George suggests that Henry is behind this, as he brought them onto the plane. Henry denies it, claiming he didn't bring anything with him. Jenny confronts him, accusing him of lying. Before he can respond, Ralph appears and attacks Jenny, trying to bite her. She screams loudly and the passengers rush to save her. Luckily, Henry and Ed strangle Ralph with a rope, killing him. Afterward, they hear someone on the radio telling Ed that help has arrived and not to worry. They all rush to the door, where 4 officers enter. The passengers believe the rescue team has arrived. However, the officers announce that no one will leave until certain procedures are completed. They administer an antidote to ensure no one is infected and confiscate Nial's gun. The officers inject Kino and Paula with the antidote. The passengers question the situation, demanding to know what the injection is for and refusing to take it without explanation. The officers insist it's mandatory if they want to leave. Louisa, the cat owner, volunteers to take the injection to leave. As she's about to be injected, her cat scratches her and escapes. The officers shoot the cat to kill it. Suddenly, Dr. Kino, who is paralyzed, gets up and begins attacking the officers, biting them. The remaining officers shoot him and take the bitten officer outside. However, they find the door locked and shoot until they manage to open it. A passenger escapes with them. The problem is that the police outside the door kill everyone except one officer, who gets shot in the leg. The group drags him back inside and locks the door again. They hear the sound of transformed individuals approaching, so they all run into a container. Susan, Niall's wife, refuses to leave her injured husband. Suddenly, Neil bites Susan, causing her to transform. The group locks the door on them. Shelley tells the group she suspects the injections aren't real antidotes, since each one is a different color and has a different name. Henry pulls out a gun and questions the officer with them about the injection. The officer reveals he isn't a real officer but works for the Center for Disease Control. He explains that terrorists created the virus. Suddenly, the officer grabs the gun and kills himself. Ed remembers a drainage tunnel for rainwater and suggests they can escape through it. At that moment, the transformed Willie appears above the container, grabs Ed, and tries to bite him. Henry shoots at him, but he runs out of bullets. Ed tells George to press the button to lift the container. George does so, killing Willie. They take Ed to lead them to the drainage tunnel. Jenny notices Henry is missing. Suddenly, one of them is dragged by a zombie from the ground, but the group doesn't pay attention and continues. Henry returns with bullets for the gun. While running, Paula grabs Jenny by the leg, trying to bite her. Jenny uses a large screwdriver to stab her from a height, killing her. Ed leads them to an office in the area where they search for maps to locate the drainage tunnel, and indeed, they manage to locate the passage. At that moment, Georgie tells them he stole Henry's bag and shows Jenny the items inside. They discover papers and documents related to scientific experiments, along with a small black box indicating that Henry is hiding something from them. At that moment, Susan and Niall arrive, but before they can eat them, Henry appears and eliminates them. After Henry leaves, Ed notices he's infected and could transform at any moment. Georgie then opens the black box and finds a serum and a set of other injections inside. At that moment, Henry confesses everything, revealing that he is part of a terrorist group aiming to eliminate half of the planet's population, claiming humans are the worst creatures on Earth. He raises his weapon, demanding Georgie hand over the serum. Ed jumps on Henry trying to kill him, but the madman shoots Ed, killing him. Everyone panics, and Georgie gives Henry the serum to prevent him from going berserk and killing them too. Henry contaminates the serum with his infected blood and injects himself. They ask him how he managed to smuggle all these items onto the plane without raising suspicion, and he reveals that his organization has significant influence. After taking the injection, Henry takes Georgie with him to bypass the police and escape. Jenny tries to save the child, but Henry shoots her and escapes with Georgie. Jenny and Shelley leave the office and head upstairs, with Shelley going first as Jenny feels dizzy and takes her time. But when she reaches the top, Shelley is nowhere to be found, and she encounters a zombie. She manages to trap its head in a machine and kills it. Jenny then ventures into an unknown path, determined to save Georgie. Suddenly, she faces a zombie, and worse, senses someone behind her. Thankfully, Shelley appears with thermal goggles, enabling her to see in the dark. However, Shelley reveals she has been bitten and shows Jenny the wound, asking her to continue searching for Georgie. She reassures Jenny not to worry about the zombies, as she will distract them until Jenny finds Georgie. Shelley points to a hole in the wall, indicating that Henry and Georgie went through it. Shelley then exits the hideout, shouting loudly to draw the zombies' attention, which works. Jenny reaches the wall opening and begins to crawl through, but before she can fully enter, Louisa's cat appears, about to bite her. Jenny hits it with a large wrench and continues through the opening. Jenny emerges on the other side and notices blood on the ground. She follows the trail, becoming more horrified when she sees a group of rats. Upon closer inspection, she realizes they are ordinary rats and continues following the blood trail until it ends. She finds a clue indicating she's on the right path and spots a staircase leading down to the passages. As she descends, she finds Georgie, who informs her that Henry's serum failed and he has transformed into a zombie. Georgie urges her not to go further, but she insists on rescuing him. Blood starts dripping onto her goggles, and suddenly Henry appears, knocking off her goggles and attacking her. Jenny tries to fight back, defending herself. Georgie retrieves the goggles, finds Henry's gun, and uses it to push Henry away from Jenny, who then strikes Henry on the head with a wrench, killing him. They are shocked as the entire place begins to burn, revealing that the government is incinerating the area. Jenny finds an exit and equips Georgie with the goggles, telling him to go ahead while she follows. They hear explosions and quicken their pace. Jenny shows signs of exhaustion, looking unwell. The heartbreaking twist is that she has been bitten and is about to transform. Georgie notices, but she tells him to keep going and leave her behind. He refuses, saying he won't abandon her. Jenny insists on continuing until they reach the exit gate, only to find it locked with metal bars. Georgie's small body allows him to slip through to the street, but he returns, calling for Jenny to save her. However, Jenny has transformed into a zombie and tries to bite him. Georgie cleverly turns his back, causing her to bite his jacket instead. She cannot pass through the bars due to her size. Georgie removes his jacket, sits on the ground, and watches her, horrified by her transformation into a terrifying red-eyed zombie. Finally, Georgie escapes the airport, becoming the sole survivor of the incident. The shocking twist is that Louisa's cat also escapes the airport and heads into the city streets. Imagine what it might do to the people there. The film ends on this scene. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos.
Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. Our story begins with a bus full of criminals heading to the most dangerous prison in the world. After the guards got the prisoners off, they started calling their names to search them until it was Ricky O's turn. Ricky, a 21-year-old young man, was wrongfully imprisoned, but strangely, the metal detector showed he had weapons. Ricky then told the guards that these were bullet fragments inside his body from someone who had tried to kill him. The guards were astonished that he was still alive. Later, we meet Hang, a thug in the prison who ordered his gang to harass a helpless man named Stick to take all his money. Unfortunately, Stick couldn't defend himself because he was weak. Not only that, but Hang also smashed Stick's wooden toy on his head and humiliated him until he injured his face. The guard didn't arrest Hang because he was taking bribes from him. At this point, Ricky pushed Hang onto nails on the ground and scared his gang because he was brave and fearless. After a short while, we learned that Hang was disfigured, so he started plotting with his gang to take revenge on Ricky and finish him off. He decided to release Shanky from solitary confinement and spoke to a corrupt guard to help him. Shanky is one of the most dangerous criminals in the prison. When the guard opened his cell, we discover that he is enormous. Meanwhile, Stick, the helpless man, was minding his own business, but Hang's corrupt guards took him to an empty place and asked him about Ricky's weaknesses. Stick refused to answer, so the guards beat him to death. At night, all the prisoners learned that Stick had died, but they didn't know who killed him. Ricky, on the other hand, was furious. He went out in the rain to break the handcuffs on Stick's hands because he had died and gave him back his wooden toy. He then vowed to avenge him and get justice from the dogs who killed him treacherously. The next morning, all the prisoners went to shower, including Ricky and Hang. Suddenly, Shanky appeared and attacked Ricky ferociously. Ricky revealed his true strength and defeated him with a single blow. Hang then pulled out a giant nail and tried to kill him, but to no avail, as Ricky easily countered him and destroyed him with one punch as well. The guards arrested Ricky. At this moment, Narumi, the leader of the prison thugs, appeared and praised Ricky for his incredible bravery because he had defeated two of the strongest fighters. But Ricky ignored him, and the guards took him to solitary confinement. After Ricky entered the cell, he felt severe pain from the fight, but he used a secret meditation technique to calm his nerves and remembered the past when he was being trained by Master Sean. Sean, Ricky's uncle, told him, "I will train you in martial arts so you can become strong and defend yourself if you ever get into trouble." Here we learn that Ricky had learned a deadly fighting technique that allowed him to use his inner strength to destroy anything in his path. He became an unbeatable warrior, to the point that Master Shan was amazed by his incredible skills. The next morning, one of the guards took Ricky to meet the prison warden. The warden was a ruthless man with a hook for a left hand. He was astonished by Ricky's strength because he had easily defeated the strongest prisoners. But Ricky ignored him and refused to speak to him. The warden then showed him a picture of his sister, Ying. When Ricky tried to take the picture, the warden stabbed him with a hook and beat him. Ricky lost his temper and smashed the entire table to retrieve his sister's picture. However, he managed to control his anger and refused to kill the warden. At night, Ricky looked at his sister's picture and remembered the old days when he used to play with her in the fields. He also started playing the flute, but the guards shouted at him to stop. The next day, a group of prisoners cornered a spy who had been leaking their secrets to the guards and were about to kill him. Suddenly, Narumi appeared. Narumi, the strongest person in the prison, told them to leave the spy alone, or he would take them all down. Here we learn that Narumi works with the warden because he secretly meets with him. The warden told Narumi to get rid of Ricky by any means necessary because the prisoners liked him and listened to him. He then gave him a sharp knife. Narumi killed one of the prisoners and hung him in the prison yard to draw Ricky's attention. When Ricky arrived to confront him, Narumi told him it was time for him to die. Although Narumi was bigger than Ricky and dominated him at the beginning of the fight, Ricky refused to give up and returned to the fight. The treacherous Narumi stabbed him with the knife and threw broken glass into his eyes. Ricky, unable to see, fell to the ground, but by chance he found a water pipe cover and smashed it with his hand to distract Narumi and wash the glass out of his eyes. The prisoners were overjoyed when Ricky regained consciousness and cheered him on. Ricky gathered his strength and defeated Narumi with a single blow. He then lowered the dead prisoner to the ground. At this point, all the prisoners lost their temper and attacked the warden, but they were stopped by three unbeatable fighters. These three were called the Falcon Gang, and their mission was to protect the warden at all costs. Ricky stopped fighting and went to bury the deceased prisoner because if he continued the battle, innocent prisoners would die. The next day, the son of the deceased prisoner was playing music on tree leaves. Ricky appeared and tried to console him because his father had passed away, but the boy felt sad when he remembered what had happened. Ricky didn't leave him alone, giving him his flute to play and ease his sorrow. Here we learn that one of the Falcon Gang members was watching everything that happened and reported it to his comrades. Later, the three of them waited for the boy in his cell and killed him in cold blood without anyone seeing them. At night, the prisoners found the boy's body lying on the ground and didn't know who had killed him. By chance, Ricky saw him with his flute and felt a new wave of sadness. He vowed to avenge his death. Meanwhile, the warden was furious and told his men that they had angered Ricky and they would all be doomed if he found out they were responsible. Here we discover that Ricky started a huge fire in the prison yard to confront the Falcon Gang head-on. In Indeed, the gang leader appeared and told Ricky that he would finish him off because he had caused too much trouble. He then used a secret kung fu technique to paralyze Ricky completely. Ricky was shocked because it was the first time he had fought someone this strong. He remembered when his master told him never to give up, so he gathered his strength again and stood up with difficulty. The treacherous gang leader called his men, including a fighter who used iron needles that completely destroyed Ricky's body, and another massive fighter who pinned Ricky down to finish him off in an iron cell. Here we learn that the warden started filling the cell with cement to kill Ricky, but Ricky broke the cell door and saved the massive fighter from death. Meanwhile, the warden felt great joy because Ricky had passed out from exhaustion and ordered the guards to tie him up because the prison chief was coming soon and everything needed to be in order. The next day, the warden waited with the guards at the prison gate, but the chief was late and they all fell asleep. And after long hours, the president finally arrived with his mischievous son. The warden greeted him and welcomed him with a new sense of fear. Here we learn that the president is evil and arrogant because he killed one of the prisoners, thinking he had knocked his son to the ground. When the warden and the president sat down to talk, the warden informed the prison president that Ricky had burned his guard. The president was shocked and suffered a heart attack, but the warden managed to save him by giving him medication at the last moment. After that, the two went to meet Ricky, who was covered in cement and locked in an iron cell. As soon as Ricky saw the prison president, he broke his chains at lightning speed and grabbed him by the neck to finish him off. But suddenly, the giant fighter appeared again and told Ricky that the time had come to prove he was stronger than him. At first, the giant fighter brutally attacked Ricky and used iron rods to tie his hands, but Ricky returned with determination because he had to achieve his revenge. He then freed his hands and defeated the giant fighter with a single blow. The prison president's son was terrified of what Ricky had done. At this point, the warden and the president revealed their true plan and dropped a 2-ton iron wall on Ricky to completely finish him off. Of course, Ricky pushed the iron wall with all his strength, but it was futile. The bigger disaster was when the prison president attacked him with an electric shock, knocking him unconscious. Fortunately, the giant fighter rose again and saved Ricky because he was the only one who had managed to defeat it. As soon as Ricky regained consciousness, he saw a picture of the giant fighter with his mother and called the warden and president ruthless animals, but they tricked him with a secret trap and locked him up in seconds. The next day, the prison president placed Ricky in a large pit and gathered the prisoners in the yard. He then ordered them to bury Ricky, but when they refused, he commanded the guards to kill them in cold blood. In the end, the prisoners were forced to comply. As they were burying Ricky, they asked him to endure the torture because the prison president planned to bury him underground for an entire week. The warden was present and placed a wooden pipe for Ricky to breathe through during this time. At night, the prisoners heard Ricky playing the flute and realized he was still alive. But suddenly, the leader of the Falcon Gang appeared and blocked the air tube Ricky was breathing through to kill him. However, it was in vain because Ricky used a kung fu breathing technique that allowed him to hold his breath for long periods. He also began to recall his painful past. Here we learn that Ricky's sister accidentally witnessed a gang of drug dealers, so they kidnapped her to prevent her from reporting them to the police. When she tried to escape, she fell from a tall building. When Ricky saw her body in the hospital, he couldn't bear it and went to take revenge on the gang leader who had kidnapped her. Despite being shot 5 times in the chest, he managed to kill him and achieve his revenge. This is why he was unjustly imprisoned. After a long time, the week finally ended, and the president ordered the guards to bring Ricky out from underground. However, he was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes when he realized Ricky was still alive. All the prisoners felt immense joy, but suddenly, the leader of the Falcon Gang appeared and exploited Ricky's weakness to attack him and knock him unconscious. After that, the prison president took Ricky and placed him among iron spikes to immobilize him. However, he refused to kill him and offered him a deal to become one of his followers, promising to give him everything he wanted. Ricky refused the offer because the president was his sworn enemy. The leader of the Falcon Gang then took a set of sharp blades and placed them in Ricky's mouth to disfigure his face. But Ricky endured the pain and spat the blades back at the prison president's face. As a result, the president ordered the guards to lock Ricky up without food until he died of starvation. While Ricky was in the cell, a kind-hearted prisoner sneaked in and gave him some food to keep him alive. Ricky thanked him and promised to rise again. However, a traitorous man informed the prison warden, and the two killed the kind-hearted prisoner. They then went to torture Ricky. At this point, the warden was surprised to find Ricky missing. When he entered the cell, it was revealed that it had been a trick, and Ricky had killed the traitorous man. Not only that, but Ricky also took the warden hostage to threaten the guards and escape. Ricky's plan was successful, and when the warden tried to save himself, all the prisoners surrounded him and took their revenge because he had tortured them for many years. Even Ricky joined the fight and personally took down the guards. Meanwhile, the prison president was in the kitchen with his son and his remaining followers, but they were shocked when Ricky arrived with a large group of prisoners. At first, the president grabbed his gun and fired an explosive shot that destroyed the place entirely. He then ordered the Falcon Gang to finish off Ricky and sat down to smoke a cigarette. Unfortunately, the Falcon Gang took advantage of the prisoners' weakness and began killing them one by one. Ricky asked his prisoner friends to withdraw from the battle because they were weak and would die. The leader of the Falcon Gang exploited Ricky's distraction and attacked him. In addition, Ricky's friend, the one with the sharp tombstone, severely injured him and kept pressing him until he lured him into a tank filled with boiling water and drowned Ricky in it. Here we learn that this was Ricky's plan all along. He tricked the gang leader and placed his leg in the boiling water. When the prison president saw what had happened, he felt intense anger and ordered his assistant to remove his son from the area. Ricky seized the opportunity and struck the president with all his might, but the president rose again. At this point, it was revealed that the president was a skilled kung fu master and knew a secret fighting technique that turned him into an unstoppable beast. Of course, Ricky couldn't believe his eyes and fought with all his might, but he couldn't affect his opponent. He waited for the right moment and lured the president into the kitchen's meat grinder, completely destroying him. After Ricky's victory, all the prisoners realized that the tyrannical prison president was finally dead. Ricky then demonstrated his true strength by breaking the prison walls and walking out alone, receiving a grand salute from all the prisoners. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an update. See you.
Welcome to Nextflix, your quick stop for movie recaps. Get all the highlights and mind-blowing twists in just minutes. Our movie, Sky High, begins, telling the story of a world of superheroes where two stand out above all the others. Commander and his wife, Jetstream. The Commander's physical strength makes him nearly unbeatable, while Jetstream can fly and is incredibly fast. During the day, they live under their real names, Steve and Josie, working in real estate. But when crime strikes, they change into their superhero costumes to deliver justice. Now, as they've aged, they have a son named Will. Will is weak and feels disappointed because he doesn't have any superpowers, a fact he hides from his father. He pretends to be strong, showing he can lift weights. Steve tells him, "I'm proud that today is your first day at a superhero school where I was raised. I hope you'll grow up to be like me and save the world." Their neighbor Layla, who is also going to the superhero school for the first time, joins Will. Steve receives an urgent call about a crime in the city, so he and Josie suit up to fight. Layla has the ability to revive dead plants. On TV, she and Will see a giant robot threatening the city's peace. Commander and Jetstream arrive to confront it. Commander lands a blow on its chest, breaking its right arm, effectively defeating it and taking its head as a trophy. Will turns off the TV and heads to school with Layla. Layla expresses her excitement about graduating and starting her crime-fighting journey like Will's parents. They board the school bus, and one of the school's secrets is that no one knows it exists. When the driver learns Will is the son of Commander and Jetstream, he announces it to the other kids, who start treating Will very well. A boy on the bus offers his seat to Will, but Will declines and sits with his friend Zach. Once all the kids are aboard, the driver takes a secret route. At the end of the path, the bus jumps, spreads wings, and flies to the school, which is called Sky High. The school floats on the clouds, suspended by anti-gravity technology. The bus lands, and the new students disembark, amazed by what they see. Like any school, there are bullies. Here, the bully is named Speed, who has super speed. He circles around the new students and, with his friend Lash, who has stretchy arms, tries to extort $15 from each student. Then Gwen, the student council president, introduces herself to them. Will falls in love with her at first sight. Later, they head to the gym, where the school principal, Powers, welcomes them and announces that they'll soon undergo a powers test. She leaves, and Captain Boomer arrives to test their abilities. He explains that after testing, he'll decide whether each student belongs in the hero team or the sidekick team. The hero team is the most prestigious and gets all the fame. He warns that every year some kids complain about his decisions, but his decision is final. The first student, Larry, demonstrates his power by transforming into a giant monster. Captain Boomer drops a car on him and Larry catches it, earning a spot on the hero team. Zach goes next, but fails to display any power. He explains that his power only works in the dark, but Captain Boomer dismisses it as unimportant and assigns him to the sidekick team. One by one, students with useful powers join the hero team, while those with weak or useless powers are placed in the sidekick team. When it's Layla's turn, she declines to demonstrate her power, saying she only uses it in special circumstances. Captain Boomer assigns her to the sidekick team. After a break, it's Will's turn. Will admits he doesn't know his superpower yet. Captain Boomer thinks he's joking and throws a car at him to force his power to manifest, but nothing happens. He tries another test to see if Will can fly like his mother, but Will fails again. Captain Boomer believes him and places him in the sidekick team. Will visits the school nurse, who explains that it's rare for someone born to two superheroes not to have powers, so he'll likely develop them eventually. That night, Steve takes Will to his secret lair for the first time, showing him the trophies he's collected from past battles, including the robot's head. Steve tells him that one day, the three of them will fight crime together. Will wants to confess that he has no powers, but doesn't want to disappoint his father. Suddenly, the robot's head starts glowing, revealing someone is watching them. Later, Will sits alone at night, and Layla joins him to comfort him about his yet-to-be-discovered powers. The next day at school, Will attends a sidekick team class taught by Mr. Boy, who promises to train them to be the best sidekicks. He explains that without sidekicks, heroes would feel lonely. Zack asks when they'll get superhero names and costumes, but Mr. Boy says they won't have their own. Upon graduation, they'll be assigned to a hero from the hero team, who will choose their name and costume. It turns out Mr. Boy was once Commander's sidekick. The sidekick team begins training, and later, Will invites his sidekick friends to study at his house. Steve meets them and is shocked by their weak powers. Will explains that they're sidekicks, and Steve praises him for the smart move of associating with sidekicks. He befriended the assistants team, and of course, Steve didn't know that Will, his son, was part of the assistants team. He asked Will, "Would you be upset if I were part of the assistants team?" Will replied, "Not at all." Steve was happy, but Will then told him, "I failed the test and was placed in the assistants team." Steve got angry, banged the table, and was about to call Captain Boomer to yell at him, but Will said, "The problem is with me, I don't have superpowers." Steve was shocked because he didn't know this and told him, "Don't worry, you'll have superpowers someday, God willing." But Will replied, "I'm not interested. I'm proud to be in the assistants team," and he left. The next day, Steve was very frustrated and shared the story with Josie. Josie told him, "We don't have to be the strongest superhero family in the world. We can just be the best family overall." Steve agreed and said, "Then let's have him work with us in real estate." Meanwhile, at school, two bullies were picking on Will while he was holding food, and they ended up falling on it. Will apologized to them, but one of the bullies, named Bess, said, "You should be sorry. You'll enjoy school because of your pathetic family." Will replied again, "I'm sorry for what my dad did to your dad." This made Bess furious, and he wanted to use his powers to burn him. The situation escalated, and Bess started throwing fireballs at Will, who defended himself with difficulty. Will tried to run and activate the fire alarm, but one of the bullies tripped him. Bess kept attacking him until Will's friends arrived. Bess was about to attack them too, but Will protected them, lifted a table with Bess on it, and threw him far away. It seemed that Will's superpower had emerged. It was physical strength. He gave Bess another strong blow, sending him flying. After that, the fire alarm was activated and the fire was extinguished. The principal arrived and took both of them to a room called the detention room, which neutralizes all superpowers. The principal told them, "At this school, we teach you how to use your superpowers. How you use them is up to you, but don't forget the reputation of your parents that you're supposed to uphold instead of tarnishing it. Keep this in mind if you try to cause trouble again." She then left, and Will tried to apologize to Bess, but Bess refused and said, "If you cross my path again, I'll destroy you." Will went home but still couldn't control his new power. He accidentally broke the door while entering the house and went to show his parents his new power. His mum told him, "The principal called us and told us about the fight. It seems you don't know how to use your new power wisely." Steve suggested taking him to the secret hideout to train him, but he said this in front of Josie, who was very happy that Will finally had powers. Moreover, his power was the same as Steve's, meaning Will inherited it directly from him. Meanwhile, aliens monitoring him through a helmet discovered that Will had gained superpowers and said, "When the time is right, we will take revenge." The next day at school, Will received a letter transferring him to the Heroes team. He was happy, but also a bit sad about leaving his friends. He attended the Heroes class, where Gwen, the student leader, was present. He sat next to her, and she helped him with an exam by creating a gun that could freeze things, thanks to her superpower of moving objects. It was also clear that Gwen admired Will, and told him she wanted to be his private tutor. Will agreed and spent the break with her and her friends. When his old friends from the assistants team tried to join them at the same table, Gwen's friends refused. This upset Will, so he went to reconcile with Layla and invited her to dinner that night. Layla agreed. Later, Will heard their friend Larry being bullied, so he went to rescue him. him. His friends then dragged Will into a confrontation with the bullies. Despite not wanting trouble, Will's friends insisted he stand up to them. The bullies accepted the challenge and the match was set. The bullies chose Bess to be Will's partner in the team challenge. The challenge involved saving human-like dummies within 3 minutes. The match began, with Speed attacking Will and Bess every time they got close to the dummies. Will hit the ground with his hand, managing to grab Speed and tie him to a pole. Speed then ran circles around Bess until Bess lost oxygen. Will had the chance to save the dummies before time ran out, but chose to save Bess instead. He grabbed Speed and threw him away, then threw Bess toward the dummies in the final second, saving them. Despite this, Bess refused to shake Will's hand. That night, Steve was very proud of Will's victory. Gwen visited their house to help Will study. They all had dinner together, joked and laughed. Gwen invited Steve and Josie to be guests of honor at the welcome party for the new class, and they agreed. Meanwhile, Layla waited for Will at the restaurant as they had planned, but he didn't show up. She was upset but didn't show it. She was surprised to find that Bess worked at the restaurant. They talked and got to know each other, and Layla confided that she liked Will. Bess advised her to confess her feelings if she liked someone. Will's family showed Gwen their photo album, and Steve noticed a picture of Gwen's father, whom he hadn't recognized before. Later, Will walked Gwen home, and she told him she had chosen him as her partner for the party. Will was thrilled. The aliens, who learned about the party where all the superheroes would gather, decided to attend. The next day, Will wanted to tell Layla about what had happened the previous night, but she reminded him about their missed dinner. She told him she wasn't upset, but wanted to know who he would take to the party. Will said he would go with Gwen. Layla was disappointed but didn't show it. When Will asked her on the bus who she would go with, she replied, "I'm going with Bess." Will was shocked and asked, "How can you go out with him? He's my sworn enemy. When did you even get to know him?" Layla replied, "Last night at the restaurant you didn't come to." She sat with Bess and told him everything that happened with Will a while ago. Layla's friends came and sat with him, which annoyed Bess a lot. Will passed by, saw them sitting together, and Layla laughed suddenly, as if Bess was entertaining them and being light-hearted. When Bess realized she was doing that to annoy Will, he agreed to go out with her to the party. At night, Gwen went to Will's house and taught him how to make the freezing gun by himself. Then she suggested they have a small party at his house. He agreed on the condition that the number of attendees would be small. When the party time came, he was surprised that the whole school showed up. He got upset because he didn't know how to clean up after all those people, especially since his parents didn't know he was throwing a party at home. He told Gwen that he wanted to invite his assistant friends. Gwen told him they wouldn't enjoy it if they came. Afterward, he took her to his dad's secret hideout and showed her his dad's gadgets. Something got stolen, but Will didn't notice. Layla was passing by Will's house, saw the party, and was surprised he threw a party and didn't invite her. She entered the party, and Gwen saw her. Gwen already knew Layla liked Will, so she told her that Will knew she liked him but was avoiding her and was too shy to tell her. She added that the proof was him throwing the party and not inviting her. Layla got very upset, cried, and left. Will came but found that Layla had already left. He asked Gwen why Layla was crying. When Gwen told him what happened, Will said he wouldn't go to the welcome party with her and didn't want to know her anymore. He kicked everyone out just as his parents arrived. His parents didn't know how to react because he threw a party at home behind their backs. Will told them, "Punish me, but don't make me go to the welcome party because I wasn't going to go anyway." But his parents insisted he had to go since they were the guests of honor. Will was still determined not to go. He tried to call Layla but got no response. He went to the restaurant where she was sitting and sent her a voice message saying he was waiting for her. At the restaurant, he found Bess, sat with him, and told him the truth, that he and Layla were going to the party together just to make him jealous. He told Bess that Layla liked him a lot, but he didn't notice. When the party time came, Will had decided not to go. His mom, Josie, gave him the photo album to keep with him. As he flipped through it, he was surprised to see a girl who looked a lot like Gwen. He saw her holding a weapon in another photo. That weapon was supposed to be in their secret hideout, but had gone missing. He realized Gwen was planning something evil and decided he had to go to the party. Steve and Josie arrived at the party, and everyone welcomed them. Suddenly, Gwen changed her outfit, and aliens arrived as well. Gwen used the weapon she had stolen from Steve's hideout, which could make anyone younger and turn them into children. She used it on Steve, Josie, and everyone at the party. The bullies and a few others with powers sided with Gwen. Bess, Layla, and the assistants managed to escape through the air vents. Will arrived at the school, met them, apologized to Layla, and confessed his love for her. He left Bess and the assistants to fight Gwen's team. team and went to save the Harmbons superheroes who had been turned into children. Gwen had taken all the children to a bus to get rid of them. Will confronted her and learned that she was actually an older woman who had used weapons on herself to stop aging. She flew at him and the battle began. The fight was evenly matched, but in the end, Gwen threw Will completely out of the school and he began falling through the air, about to die. But Will discovered he could also fly, inheriting his parents' powers. He attacked Gwen and defeated her. Afterward, all the children returned to their original ages. Will apologized to his parents for taking Gwen to the secret hideout. Steve told him it didn't matter as long as he managed to win, save them, and save the school. The assistants who helped save the school were awarded the Hero of the Year trophy. This eliminated the distinction between assistants and heroes. The principal imprisoned Gwen and her team in a light chamber that neutralized superpowers. And with that, the episode ended. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Recaply X, your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists in minutes. The film begins with a depiction of an underwater kingdom where the Fish King, wearing a magical ring, communicates with his spy, the frog. The king asks about the whereabouts of the fish he wants to marry, but the frog admits he doesn't know where she is, angering the king. The king orders the frog to search rivers, streams, and ponds until he finds her. The scene then shifts to a Russian village where we see the house of a blind blacksmith and his son Ivan, who wakes up to the sound of his dog. Ivan is kind-hearted but somewhat naive. When he leaves the house, his blind father insists he must learn the blacksmith trade, and Ivan agrees. His father asks him to catch something for them to eat. Ivan takes a bucket and a fishing rod and heads to the ice-covered river. When he reaches the river, Ivan makes a hole in the ice and casts his line. Suddenly, bubbles begin to form in the water. Ivan steps back in surprise, and a jet of water shoots a fish directly into his bucket. Ivan is thrilled at how easy it was to catch the fish and returns home, thinking about the meal he will prepare. But the fish surprises him by speaking and asking him not to cook her. Ivan is astonished that the fish can talk and listens as she offers him 3 wishes if he returns her to the river. Filled with joy, Ivan begins to think about his wishes. Without realizing it, he expresses his desire to see the entire city without leaving his home. Suddenly, a miracle happens, and his house begins to rise into the sky. The fish informs him that his first wish has been granted. Ivan is amazed and excited about the possibilities before him. Although he expressed his wish without much thought, the fish clarifies that he indeed made the wish. His workshop becomes part of a moving vehicle that takes him around the city. The fish explains that he wanted to explore the city without leaving his workshop, so the workshop now accompanies him on his journey. Despite his disbelief and the cold winter, Ivan mutters wishes for warmth and greenery. Instantly, the ice disappears, and the weather turns into a warm spring, transforming the scenery into a garden. The fish tells him that 2 of his wishes have now been fulfilled, leaving 1 wish remaining. Carrying the fish in the bucket, Ivan reflects on how he wasted his wishes on trivial things and regrets not asking for something greater. The fish responds that everyone wishes according to their view of the world. As they continue their journey, some thieves stop Ivan, intending to rob him. When they find no money, they try to take the fish. Ivan seizes a moment of distraction and escapes with the bucket. The thieves thieves chase him, but with no way out, Ivan decides to release the fish into the river, asking her to stay there to be safe. The angry thieves hang him from a tree by his head and leave. After a while, a beautiful girl arrives and helps him down. When Ivan notices a scarf with a fish emblem on her shoulder, he realizes she is the fish he had just released into the lake, transformed into a human to save him. She introduces herself as Yana. To ensure she doesn't run away, Ivan takes her scarf and tells her he still has one wish left, which he will use at the right time. Yana curiously asks about his plan. Ivan reveals that his goal is to marry the Russian Tsar's daughter. Yana asks if that will be his third wish, but he confirms that he will try to achieve it through his own means and asks her for help. She agrees to assist him. The scene shifts to the Tsar's palace, where a maid informs Princess Nancy that the English ambassador is on his way. This news excites her, as she has long dreamed of marrying an Englishman. She quickly prepares herself, but the Tsar, who harbors a new hatred for the English, does not want his daughter to marry one of them. The English ambassador arrives, intending to win the Tsar's approval and request his daughter's hand in marriage. He presents Princess Nancy with a parasol, a gift that delights her, but the Tsar disapproves and scolds the ambassador, accusing the English of coming only to pillage. The ambassador tries to change his mind and offers him a gift to alter his perception of the English. At this moment, Ivan and Yana arrive at the kingdom. The ambassador presents the Tsar with a strange device that produces music on its own, hiding the fact that a man inside the machine operates it by pressing buttons. No one knows about this trick. While the ambassador demonstrates the music, Ivan and Yana watch from behind the palace walls. Despite the display, the Tsar remains unimpressed, saying they have no need for such a device. However, Nancy is completely smitten with the English ambassador and wants to marry him. In a moment of emotion, the ambassador begins kissing Nancy's hand, leaving the Tsar conflicted about how to convince his daughter otherwise. At this point, Ivan bursts into the scene and suggests to the Tsar that he doesn't need to marry the princess to the Englishman, as he can bring a device that truly plays music on its own. Hearing this, the Tsar is pleased because he was looking for any excuse to stop his daughter's marriage to the Englishman. The Tsar tells Ivan that if he brings such a device, he can ask for whatever he wants. Ivan asks if he could marry the princess, and the Tsar agrees. The princess, however, is upset upon hearing this because she wants to marry the ambassador and does not love Ivan. She tries to scare him, but Ivan remains determined. The Tsar orders that Ivan be given new clothes and shoes for his journey, as he is poor, and the Tsar wants to prepare him properly for the task. Ivan, who had been wearing old socks, is overjoyed with the offer. When he leaves, he shares the news with Yana, who warns him that although the musical device exists, it is extremely difficult to obtain. When Ivan asks why, she explains that the device is in the hands of a creature in the dark forest, and all who have tried to retrieve it have never returned alive. Yana reveals that the device has strange powers. If it plays a happy tune, people will dance non-stop until they collapse from exhaustion and are then eaten by the creature. If it plays a sad tune, people will cry until they fall asleep and are also eaten by the creature. Ivan understands the danger and decides to take the risk. He and Yana prepare a bag of food for the journey and set off to search. As they venture deeper into the dark forest, overcoming its challenges, they finally near their goal. When they reach the forest's edge, Yana tells Ivan he must continue alone. As he moves through the dense forest, he finds himself surrounded by skeletons and bones, evidence of those who attempted the task before him. Suddenly, he hears the creature's voice asking if he too is seeking the musical device. Ivan confirms his intention, and the creature proposes a challenge. If Ivan can resist the music's effects without losing control, he will be given the device. The creature asks if Ivan prefers to hear a sad or happy tune. Ivan chooses the sad tune. Unexpectedly, the song has no effect on Ivan, who even begins to sing along. Astonished, the creature asks how he knows the song and why it doesn't affect him. Ivan explains that his mother used to sing it to him every day. That's why it doesn't affect him. The creature, after facing the OA challenge, admitted to Ivan that he would die of hunger if he handed over the machine. So Ivan offered him food from his bag, which made the creature very happy. The creature thanked Ivan, but still refused to give him the machine, although he decided to accompany Ivan and told him to consider him a friend. On the other side, near the river, Yana was waiting for Ivan as she sat quietly. Suddenly, the frog, the king's messenger, arrived and handed her a letter. The king had been searching for her everywhere and wanted her to come immediately to marry him. Yana firmly replied and told him to inform the king that she would never marry him. At that moment, Ivan arrived with the creature and the musical instrument. He overheard the conversation between Yana and the frog. Out of curiosity, Yana asked him if he had finally gotten the musical instrument. Ivan nodded his head, and after a while, they decided to return. On their way back, Ivan told Yana that he understood her refusal to marry the king because he himself had fled from there. Yana confirmed this and said she did not love him. In the next scene, the events shift to the king's palace. There, the ambassador of England, disguised now as the ambassador of Italy, was trying again to convince the king to let him marry the princess. She recognized him and was delighted, but before he could propose to her, Ivan arrived with the musical instrument and the cat, who began to play joyful tunes. This made everyone in the royal court dance uncontrollably until they were exhausted from the magical music. Finally, at Ivan's request, the cat stopped the music. The king was impressed and congratulated Ivan on the marvelous instrument, deciding that both the cat and the instrument should remain in the palace. Ivan remembered his agreement and asked the king to fulfill his promise and let him marry his daughter, Nancy. The king agreed, but clever and arrogant Nancy only wanted to marry the English ambassador. To avoid marrying Ivan, she suggested that he complete a task she deemed impossible, hoping to get rid of him forever. Naively, Ivan accepted the challenge and promised to fulfill whatever task Nancy decided to give him. She told him she would reveal the task the next day. Later, Ivan met with Yana, who, seeing him happy, asked if he was sure the princess would agree to marry him. Ivan replied that he wasn't sure, but Nancy had proposed the challenge before agreeing to marriage, and she promised to marry him if he succeeded in completing the final task. That night, Princess Nancy went to the storage room to summon the spirit of her wicked mother. When the spirit appeared, she asked why she had been summoned. Nancy admitted that she wanted to assign Ivan a very difficult task, so he would fail to complete it, and they could get rid of him forever. Her mother suggested a very challenging task. The next day, as planned, the princess asked the ambassador to present to the king an extraordinary device. This device could automatically cut vegetables and produce juice from fruits. What no one knew was that there was actually a person hidden inside the machine doing all the work, and everyone thought the machine operated on its own. The ambassador asked the king if he had anything similar in his kingdom. Before the king could respond, Nancy intervened and asked if Ivan could bring something that could serve food automatically and then clean it up by itself. The king mentioned hearing about a magical tablecloth that could do this, though he had never seen it. Cleverly, Nancy suggested to the king that if Ivan could bring this tablecloth, she would marry him. Under these conditions, Ivan set out with Yana in search of the legendary magical tablecloth. During their journey, Yana explained to him that the tablecloth was with two brothers, John and Ron, who had left the city years ago to live in a mountainous region. Over time, the brothers had become lazy due to the comfort provided by the tablecloth, which brought them food effortlessly. As they continued their journey, Ivan and Yana stopped at the home of an elderly couple. Despite their poverty, they loved each other deeply. Yana commented that love between two people should be like a needle and thread, one incomplete without the other, referring to the elderly couple. As they talked, they passed through beautiful green fields until they reached the mountainous region. There they found the brothers, who were noticeably overweight due to their inactivity, sitting among the high rocks with the magical tablecloth that continued to bring them food. The brothers, bored with the food, were about to rest when Ivan approached and asked them for the magical tablecloth. This angered them greatly, and in a moment of rage, they threw a stone at Ivan, knocking him unconscious. Yana quickly arrived to help him and suggested to the brothers that they look at their reflection in the water. When they saw how much they had changed and resembled animals due to years of accumulated laziness, they felt deep sadness and asked Yana for a solution. She advised them to get rid of the magical tablecloth, to break free from their laziness and start working to provide for themselves. The brothers agreed and handed the tablecloth to Yana, who took it and left with Ivan, who had regained consciousness. On their way back, Ivan was overjoyed because he had found the tablecloth. He began collecting flowers from the garden to give to the princess. Yana revealed to him that Nancy didn't actually want to marry him and had only assigned him this task to get rid of him. Ivan, innocent and kind-hearted, didn't want to believe it and explained to Yana how he had planned to propose to the princess. Ivan's kindness and innocence made Yana fall in love with him, though she decided not to reveal her feelings at that time. At the palace, the princess and the ambassador were celebrating, thinking Ivan would never return. But Ivan came back victorious, greeted enthusiastically by all the kingdom's residents, who saw him as a hero. The king was impressed and told his daughter to see how admired and respected Ivan was by the people. However, Nancy was furious because she had no intention of marrying Ivan. In despair, she returned to the storage room to summon her wicked mother's spirit again and devise a new plan to escape marrying Ivan. The wicked mother suggested another dangerous plan. The next day, in front of everyone in the royal court, Nancy told the king she was ready to marry, but only with her mother's blessing. Thus, Ivan would have to venture into the dark world to obtain her mother's approval for the marriage. When the king heard this, he realized that his daughter was setting impossible obstacles for Ivan to avoid the marriage, as going to the dark world and returning alive was an impossible feat. The king and Ivan felt disheartened by this difficult task, but Ivan accepted the challenge. Later, he went to Yana, who warned him that venturing into that place was like entering the jaws of death, as it was a different world. Ivan asked how he could get there and decided to go alone, but Yana explained that he would have to pass through a dark forest and a black river filled with dangers and fog. The next day, he set out with Yana toward the second dark world, but before leaving, he visited his blind father because he didn't know if he would return or not. When he heard Yana's voice, his father, who was a blacksmith working with difficulty due to blindness, expressed his sadness because he hadn't heard his son's voice in days and couldn't search for him because he was blind. Yana and Ivan were saddened when they saw his condition. Ivan regretted leaving his father in such circumstances and asked for his forgiveness. He also sought his permission for the journey. Then Ivan told Yana that even though he had ruined 2 of his wishes, he wanted the third to be the healing of his father's eyes. Yana granted him that wish, and his father's eyes were healed, restoring his sight while he worked as a blacksmith. When they reached the river, Ivan reminded Yana that he had fulfilled 3 wishes and that she had helped him a lot, but he didn't want to cause her any more trouble. So he decided to continue the journey alone. He then handed her back her marine scarf and freed her. But Yana replied that he still didn't understand that their relationship was like a thread connected to a needle, inseparable forever, and that she wouldn't leave him alone in difficult times. She asked him to understand that when he succeeded, they could be together. Later, Yana decided to go with him, even though Ivan still didn't fully understand the love she felt for him, as she didn't express her feelings clearly. Yana boarded the boat with him, and they continued together on the river. When they entered, they saw statues of death messengers everywhere. She pointed to the dark area, and they stopped the boat and descended into a valley. Ivan commented on the strangeness of the place. The guardian of the world approached them and asked, surprised, how they had arrived there. Yana replied that she had come with him, and Ivan was astonished. The guardian revealed, after Yana's response, that she had come with him, and Ivan was surprised. The guardian then revealed that Yana was his daughter and explained that she was transformed into a fish to learn and explore the world. Yana explained that they had come to search for the queen's soul. The guardian told them that the queen was a cruel and cunning woman who married the king to gain power and torture the poor people. That's why her soul was being punished in this world, sentenced to eternal hunger. The guardian then revealed the queen's soul, and in front of Yana and Ivan, she initially refused to agree to marriage. Seeing the situation, Yana's father intervened and offered the queen food, explaining that her torment would not end unless she agreed. Under pressure, the queen finally agreed. Later, in King Yar's palace, Nancy and the ambassador were enjoying a feast, and the king watched in sadness. Suddenly, the queen's soul appeared on a tray and announced her agreement to marriage in front of everyone. This filled the king with joy. However, Nancy was shocked to see that Ivan had managed to complete the difficult task. At that moment, in the dark world, Yana thanked her father and returned to the boat with Ivan, preparing to return. On the way, she told Ivan that he had completed the hardest task and didn't need her anymore. She asked him to forget her and told him resignedly that he would marry the princess anyway. But Ivan replied that he could never forget her and didn't want to. Yana, with sadness and resignation, thought about how those who returned from that place could lose their memories. Elsewhere, Nancy, filled with anger, entered the storage room and broke the chair she used to summon her evil mother's spirit. Her mother revealed that she had been forced to give Ivan some freedom under pressure, but she admitted having a secret that could solve all her problems. When Nancy asked about the secret, her mother explained that Ivan hadn't done all of this alone in his adventures, and that a magical fish had been helping him with everything. In their kingdom, using magic was punishable by death. At that moment, Ivan and Yana were continuing their journey on the river. At dawn, Ivan woke up and found the boat on the shore with all his memories of Yana erased. When he asked her, "Who are you?" Yana simply replied, "I'm just the one steering the boat." Ivan disembarked, feeling like he was forgetting something important. When he reached Nancy, he told her that although he had completed all his tasks, he had fallen in love with someone else, but he couldn't remember who. Nancy cleverly asked if he had completed his tasks alone, and even admitted that he had always relied on magical help, though he couldn't remember who it was either. Upon hearing about the magic, Nancy ordered the soldiers to arrest him immediately, as in their kingdom, this was punishable by death. Ivan was stunned, unable to believe that the person he risked his life for would betray him this way. The next day, as they blindfolded him for execution, Yana suddenly arrived and offered her freedom in exchange for Ivan's. She handed Nancy her scarf with the fish emblem, her symbol of magic. Nancy was moved and agreed to the deal, cancelling Ivan's execution. But after saving him, power and arrogance took over Nancy even more. She decided to imprison her father to crown herself queen. After her coronation, she admitted to Yana that her first wish had come true, and now she wished for the Prince of England to propose to her. Thanks to Yana's magic, English soldiers arrived with a marriage proposal from the prince, which made the English ambassador, who was Nancy's lover before, feel betrayed. Nancy, without hesitation, demoted him to work as a cleaner in the palace. Meanwhile, Ivan wandered through the places he had visited with Yana before, unable to recall anything clearly. During a nighttime visit to his father, he met John and Ron, who were exhausted from the physical effort they had exerted. His father reminded him that the last time he was there, he was with someone named Yana. When he saw a needle thread in John's hand, all his memories of Yana returned to him. Ivan was determined to reclaim his love. He decided to return to the palace, fight, and do the impossible to free Yana. With the help of his father and the brothers, Ivan broke down the palace doors. When he confronted Nancy, Ivan demanded Yana's release and threatened to do whatever it took against the soldiers if she didn't comply. Nancy, always calculating, offered Yana a third wish, to turn her into a sorceress like herself. Yana granted her wish, but with an unexpected twist. Nancy turned into a fish. When Nancy tried to reverse the transformation, she discovered that she couldn't use magic for her own benefit, meaning that Yana could grant magic to others, but couldn't use it for herself. At that moment, water from a nearby well began to gush, and the king of the fish appeared, mistaking Nancy for Yana. He was overjoyed to see the fish he loved and wanted to marry her, taking Nancy underwater to wed her. After being freed from Nancy, everyone celebrated, and Yana was liberated. Ivan's father was also freed. Finally, Ivan and Yana declared their love for each other and decided to live together forever, like a needle and thread. And so, the magical tale filled with adventures and enchantments came to an end. See you in a new
Welcome to Plot Twists, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The story begins in an ancient time where humans and other creatures, called orcs, coexist. Wars erupted between them, devastating the land and claiming countless lives on both sides. These wars lasted for a long time, but eventually ended in peace. However, now both sides face a new, mysterious danger, known as the Fel, or green magic. The catastrophe lies in the fact that this magic has affected both sides, causing strange and significant changes in them, turning them into savages. The one narrating this story is Durotan, the leader of an orc tribe, who now feels guilty for bringing his tribe into this danger, unaware of the consequences. At the same time, his wife Draka, heavily pregnant in her last months, is by his side. He tells her to hide her pregnancy because they must travel to a new war. The next morning, all the orc tribes gather to prepare for war. Durotan speaks with his friend Orgrim, telling him that all the orc tribes are ready and equipped with massive forces. Orgrim responds, saying it looks like a war of annihilation. Then we see Gul'dan, the terrifying creature who is their leader and the source of the green magic. He gathers them all to deliver a speech, explaining that the fuel for his magic comes from the souls of living humans. Therefore, they will invade new lands and take all the souls there. He announces that they now have enough souls to give them the strength needed for this new war. Suddenly, a green light appears, extracting the souls of people trapped in cages, forming a massive portal between the mountains using the power of these souls. Gul'dan orders everyone to pass through it. The orcs rush toward the portal, and when it is Durotan and his pregnant wife's turn, he enters first, followed by her. However, she experiences immense pain as she crosses to the other side, revealing her pregnancy to everyone. Durotan runs to her, but Gul'dan's assistant, Blackhand, stops him, scolding him for bringing his pregnant wife. At the same time, Draka goes into labor, and Gul'dan himself assists her. She gives birth to a boy, but unfortunately, the baby is stillborn due to the magic's energy they cross through. Gul'dan takes the child and uses the soul of a deer wandering nearby to restore the baby's life. Everyone rejoices, and Gul'dan declares that a new warrior has joined their army. The scene shifts to a distant city where a strong warrior named Lothar is at a weaponsmith shop. The smith offers him a new weapon resembling a gun, but firing explosives instead of bullets, capable of destroying anything in its path. Lothar takes the weapon to examine it. At that moment, they receive a message from the city's king, informing them that their cities are under attack, and their people and soldiers guarding the borders are being killed. Lothar realizes he must return to the capital to fulfill his duty in the army. He goes to investigate the dead soldiers and learns that an entire squad was killed in a strange and brutal manner. Even stranger, they detained a man who was examining the corpses. Lothar goes to interrogate him and discovers a peculiar mark on the man's armor, identifying him as a mage. The mage casts a spell to protect himself and requests a chance to examine the last corpse, claiming it holds the secret to identifying who attacked the soldiers. Lothar agrees, and as the mage examines the body, green smoke suddenly emerges from it. The mage insists they must immediately summon the guardian Medivh, but Lothar tells him only the king can summon the guardian. They head to the capital to inform the king. At the king's palace, the king questions his advisors about the gruesome deaths and the abductions of survivors. The mage named Khadgar explains that the secret lies in the green magic, shocking everyone. He reveals that he is a mage trained by a powerful master and came here because he sensed the presence of evil that threatens to destroy everything. He urges them to summon the guardian Medivh immediately to save them. While they are talking, a nearby city is attacked and set ablaze by the enemy. The king orders Lothar to go to the guardian and gives him the royal ring as a sign of authority. Lothar takes Khadgar with him, and they use one of the king's giant birds to travel quickly. Meanwhile, Gul'dan and his forces finish conquering a new city, capturing its inhabitants to harvest their souls. Durotan, however, is unhappy with these actions, seeing them as dishonorable and destructive. At the same time, Lothar and Khadgar arrive at the guardian's fortress and meet Moroes, the guardian's assistant, who takes them to meet Medivh. Khadgar marvels at the fortress's size and its vast library of books. Inside, they find Medivh sculpting a massive clay statue, which he plans to animate with magic and name Golem. Lothar delivers the king's message, urging Medivh to come to the Eye Palace. Medivh, however, questions Khadgar about his presence and discovers he has been secretly studying a forbidden book. As Khadgar examines a particular book, a dark smoke emerges and the guardian confronts him. Khadgar explains that the green magic is a powerful and dangerous force that feeds on human lives and souls, granting immense power but harming anyone who comes near it. Realizing the threat, Medivh decides to accompany them to the king to prepare for the impending war. He creates a magical circle that transports the three of them to the royal palace of Lothar. When they arrive at the palace, Lothar welcomes Medivh and takes them to the war meeting room. They begin to discuss the information they have gathered about the enemy, which consists of massive giant creatures. However, they do not know their strength or their connection to the green magic. They express their desire to capture one of them to understand their true nature. Medivh responds by saying he will devise a plan to capture a few of them. Indeed, he sets off with Lothar, Khadgar, and a group of soldiers to the city that the enemy recently attacked. When they arrive, they find the place eerily quiet, with nothing but human corpses scattered everywhere. They stop by a tree marked with traces of green magic. Suddenly, an axe flies towards one of the soldiers, killing him instantly. They realize they are under attack, and the soldiers prepare to defend themselves. Out of nowhere, a group of orcs descends upon them, brutally killing the soldiers one by one. During this time, Khadgar stands beside Medivh. When one of the orcs tries to approach them, Khadgar casts a spell to create a large barrier to protect them from the enemies. Simultaneously inside the barrier, Medivh casts a larger spell to eliminate all the green magic in the area. Meanwhile, the soldiers outside the barrier continue fighting the orcs, with Lothar fiercely battling them. Lothar's son, who is among the soldiers, is nearly killed by an orc, but Lothar saves him at the last moment. Durotan is also present in the battle and is astonished by what is happening. Suddenly, Medivh's spell activates, eliminating all the orcs infused with green magic, leaving only Durotan and one other orc alive. Durotan mounts his horse and flees quickly. Curiously, after successfully casting his spell, Medivh strikes the ground with his staff and leaves the area quickly to return to his fortress. Lothar takes a few soldiers with him to pursue Medivh. During the chase, they manage to capture one of the orcs after knocking him unconscious. Meanwhile, another orc approaches Khadgar, who is standing alone. However, Khadgar casts a spell to bind the orc to a tree until Lothar arrives. Thus, they capture two of the giants and return with them to the palace to study them. On the way back, Lothar attempts to communicate with the larger orc, asking him who they are and why they are attacking their lands. However, the orc does not understand his language. One of the female orcs, who can speak their language, responds and translates. She reveals that they came through a magical portal created by Gul'dan, and that she learned their language from human captives, whom the orcs used to feed on their souls. The king asks her if the captives are still alive, to which she replies affirmatively. The king then demands that she show them the location of the portal so they can rescue the captives. When she refuses, she is imprisoned. Meanwhile, Durotan and his companion return to Gul'dan, who mocks them for their weakness and for losing to humans despite their strength. Durotan informs Gul'dan that the victor of the battle was someone using green magic similar to his own. Gul'dan is surprised, stating that no one else uses that magic but him. Back in the dungeon, the female orc, Garona, is approaching approached by the king's wife, who is also Lothar's sister. She offers Garona clothes, food, and drink, trying to win her over. Garona, moved by her kindness, agrees to reveal the location of the portal. Elsewhere, Durotan confides in his companion, Orgrim, expressing his disapproval of Gul'dan's destructive actions. He suggests allying with the humans and their mages to take down Gul'dan and restore the Orc people's honor. Garona and Lothar prepare for their journey to the mysterious portal, accompanied by Khadgar and a group of soldiers. During their journey, Garona reveals that her name means the cursed in her language and shares her tragic past, including how her mother was killed because of her birth. The next morning, they arrive at the portal's location and assess the number of orcs and the captives' positions. Garona explains that Gul'dan is waiting for a larger portal to be completed to bring more orcs into the city. If the portal opens, everyone will be in grave danger. Lothar decides they must return to the palace to inform the king and prepare. During this time, Garona is alone with Khadgar when Durotan appears, restrains Khadgar, and delivers a message to Garona. He asks her to arrange a meeting between him and the king at the Black Rock to discuss an alliance against Gul'dan. Garona agrees to deliver his message to the king. Meanwhile, Medivh arrives at his fortress, visibly weakened by the effects of the green magic. His assistant advises him not to return to the battlefield, but Medivh insists that the kingdom needs his power now more than ever. At the same time, representatives from various cities in the kingdom gather for a meeting with the king to discuss solutions to the orc threat. Lothar arrives and shares the new information he has learned about the orcs, emphasizing that now is the time. It is the time when all forces must unite, and suddenly a message arrives for Lothar. He learns from it that his son was injured in the recent war. He rushes to his son to check on him and finds him well and unharmed. He asks his son to take care of himself because he has no one else in the world. The son agrees. After that, they all gather with Garona, who conveys a message from Durotan. However, Lothar is certain it is a trap set by Durotan to lure the rest of his people and kill the king. But Garona tells them that Durotan was the tribe's leader and had always been honorable and kind. Eventually, the king agrees to meet him to understand his exact intentions and asks Garona to accompany them, giving her a royal weapon. At the same time, Khadgar enters a room and finds the guard inside. He sees all the drawings Khadgar made about the green magic. When Khadgar tries to show him his findings, the sorcerer gets angry, burns all the drawings, and tells him to stay away from the green magic and focus solely on protecting the king. Fortunately, Khadgar had hidden another drawing and quickly goes to Lothar to tell him what happened with the guard or sorcerer, showing him the hidden drawing. He explains that one of the orcs is inside the city and is the one who summoned them, and they need to find out who that person is. They begin suspecting Medivh due to his recent strange and frightening behavior. They then head to meet Durotan and his tribe, while Medivh stays atop the mountain to protect them. He tells them that the deadly magic used by Gul'dan is destroying everything, including their world. Therefore, they need to eliminate him. The king agrees to bring his men and attack their camps, instructing the soldiers to distract Gul'dan's guards so that Durotan and his men can enter and kill him. The king agrees, but it becomes evident that the treaty won't last because Gul'dan's men suddenly appear and attack them. The king, Lothar, and their companions realize it was an ambush and flee. However, Durotan tries to prove his honesty by fighting Gul'dan's men. Meanwhile, the soldiers battle the monsters attacking them, and Medivh begins creating a magical barrier to protect them. Unfortunately, when he casts it on the orc monsters, Lothar's son, Callan, ends up inside the barrier. Lothar tries to enter to save his son, but fails. He calls out to Medivh, but Medivh is not in his right mind. When Blackhand, Gul'dan's assistant, sees Callan and learns he is Lothar's son, he grabs him by the neck and kills him with his claw in front of his father. Lothar feels he has lost everything in his life. At the same time, Khadgar and Garona search for Medivh and find him atop the mountain. They take him back to his stronghold. The shocking revelation occurs when Khadgar looks into Medivh's eyes and sees them glowing green, realizing he has been corrupted by the green magic. He leaves to find a solution at the Mages' Council, knowing who brought the orcs to their world. Meanwhile, Durotan returns to his tribe to protect them after they accused him and his men of treason. Blackhand confronts him, calling him a traitor and demanding he surrender to protect his tribe. Durotan bids farewell to his wife, asking her to name their son Goel, and leaves with Blackhand. When Medivh regains consciousness, he finds Garona beside him. She tells him what happened to Lothar's son, making him suspicious of her. He tells her to stay by Lothar's side and creates a portal for her to reach it. However, Medivh begins to weaken again. Meanwhile, Gul'dan tries to turn all the orc tribes against each other to sow hatred among them. He asks Orgrim, Durotan's friend, to become the tribe's leader instead of the traitor Durotan. Orgrim attacks Durotan's tribe to take control, but gives Draka, Durotan's wife, a chance to escape with their son. She flees, but feels betrayed by her friend and leader. Khadgar reaches the Mages' Council and tells them what happened to Medivh. Suddenly, a portal opens, and Khadgar sees the same black smoke he saw earlier in the library. An old woman appears, telling him that Medivh is fully corrupted by the green magic and will destroy the world unless stopped. She warns that he will become a powerful demon. Khadgar admits he can't stop him alone, and she advises him to collaborate with his allies. Strangely, her eyes also glow green, indicating the magic has corrupted her too. Back with Medivh, he collapses, and his assistant places him in the energy pool to revive him. However, the pool turns green. Medivh apologizes to his assistant, confessing that the green magic corrupted him, led him to summon the orcs, and caused harm to many people, becoming a curse to everyone. His eyes turn black, and he takes on a terrifying appearance, absorbing his assistant's soul to sustain himself. The king prepares his soldiers for an attack on the orc city, but Lothar strongly opposes the plan. Suddenly, Medivh appears, seemingly rejuvenated, and provokes Lothar with words about his deceased son, leading to a fight between them. Medivh convinces the king to imprison Lothar, claiming they can protect the kingdom without him. Garona bids farewell to Lothar before joining the battle, promising not to trust Medivh and to protect the king. Meanwhile, Orgrim feels guilty and releases Durotan from captivity. After ensuring his wife's safety, Durotan prepares to confront Gul'dan. Elsewhere, the king prepares his soldiers for battle, leaving his wife and son behind, sensing he might not return. Khadgar returns to free Lothar, using magic to turn the guard into a sheep and creating a portal to Medivh's location. He informs Lothar that Medivh must be stopped immediately. Meanwhile, Draka flees with her son, but is pursued by Gul'dan's men. She places her son in the water to save him and confronts her pursuers. Although she fights valiantly, she is fatally wounded. Durotan gathers his men and friend to face Gul'dan, and he calls out to him and says, "Come fight me." So Gul'dan agrees, and a battle begins between them. They are not supposed to use magic, but in reality, Durotan manages to strike him blow after blow. However, Gul'dan retaliates with great force and hits him hard. Meanwhile, Gul'dan and Lothar arrive at Medivh's castle and find that his assistant is dead. Suddenly, Medivh appears, but he looks terrifying. He restrains Lothar and also strikes Khadgar. Medivh begins chanting a spell to open the portal for the orcs, and Khadgar tells Lothar they must stop Medivh immediately. At the same time, Gul'dan is forced to end his battle with Durotan, so he drains Durotan's soul and throws him aside. Everyone calls Gul'dan a cheater in the fight, but no one can stop him. When Durotan dies, they all declare themselves against Gul'dan. Gul'dan revives the spirits he had captured to intimidate the rest. Blackhand, the great beast, prepares for the arrival of King Lane's army, which has finally reached the battlefield. Meanwhile, Medivh continues his spell, and Khadgar and Lothar try to stop him. Medivh moves his massive statue to keep them away and continues his incantation. The army strikes fiercely against the orc monsters. Garona fights with all her strength to save the king. At the same time, Gul'dan absorbs more souls and summons a larger army of orcs. Back at the castle, Khadgar devises a new plan to defeat Medivh. He asks Lothar to distract Medivh while he prepares a powerful spell. Lothar successfully distracts Medivh, who tries to kill him. It becomes apparent that Medivh is resisting the evil within him, but ultimately fails, transforming into a terrifyingly massive creature. Khadgar's spell succeeds, causing the massive statue to fall on Medivh, killing him. Unfortunately, Khadgar also falls into the lake and is affected by the green magic. In the last moment, he manages to create a protective circle around the ruins to shield them. He completes his spell on Medivh's head to remove the green magic. With an incredible burst of energy, the entire castle is engulfed, and the green magic is eradicated from both Garona and Medivh. The orc portal disappears. In a final act, Medivh chants a spell with his last breath to open a rescue portal for King Lane and his army. Lothar rushes to save his king in the battle. Meanwhile, Garona hurries to free the prisoners so they can escape through the portal. Sadly, the mage dies and the portal closes. The orc army reappears, now including Blackhand, who has become much stronger and more monstrous. He begins throwing soldiers left and right like chess pieces. The king realizes it's the end, with no chance of survival. He tells Garona to take the honor of killing him at the right moment to stop the war between humans and orcs by taking leadership after his death. Garona struggles with this decision and is unable to do what he asks. However, when she sees him fighting Blackhand and on the verge of death, she draws her sword and kills the king. She is then lifted up and celebrated by the orcs. At the same moment, Lothar arrives on the Royal Griffin and starts killing the orc monsters. He is shocked to learn what happened and realizes he arrived too late. He immediately declares Garona a traitor and takes the king's body to return it to the kingdom. However, he is stopped. Lothar doesn't forget his old grudge against the one who killed his son. He faces him with great strength and manages to defeat him completely, finishing him off. He brings him to the ground saying, "I avenged my son." Gul'dan becomes furious and orders Lothar to be killed, but surprisingly, no one obeys his commands. Instead, they all salute Lothar for winning the battle. Garona stops Gul'dan and tells him he must abide by the rules and treaty between humans. Lothar returns to the kingdom with the king's body, still in disbelief about what Garona did. He tells Khadgar about Garona's betrayal, but Khadgar insists she must have done it for a reason, as Garona is not a traitor. In the kingdom, the king is buried, and Lothar takes over leadership until the king's son grows up. Their struggle against evil continues, and they remember their kind King Lane. The final surprise is when someone finds Draka's son in the water. They take him and raise him to become the new leader of the orcs, and that's the end. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an update.